you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Welcome back for another episode of the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast. If you have been listening through all of these, first of all, thanks. And secondly, I am sure you now have a very good grasp on how these conversations are conducted. So if you or someone that you know would make for a good guest to have, please contact me or have them contact me at whycan'twetalkaboutthat@proton.me. Thanks. For today's episode, I sat down with Alexandra Wallace. Allie is someone who has been involved in very significant parts of my life, like being the photographer at my daughter's wedding and being part of the team that is our biggest rival in the Heads Up tournament. But I really didn't know much about any of her personal thoughts and beliefs. We had a fantastic conversation, and when we got around to discussing spiritual matters, Allie really asked some very important and hard-hitting questions. I was in the hot seat. She really grilled me, and I loved every moment of it. Hopefully you will as well. In this episode, we discussed things like Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, playing violin, writing music, songs played at weddings, Spotify playlists, Celine Dion, wedding photography, pet photography, My Name is Circus, film school, The National, Bright Eyes, Taylor Swift, AFI, 828, COVID, the government pitting us against each other, parenting, how much freedom we should give our children, the death penalty, aliens, intelligent design, cherry picking, cheating with atheism, intelligent design, American Beauty, clear play, content in movies, censorship, and swearing. Enjoy the conversation. Gonna live or not, but
Yeah.
which I'm always like torn because I'm like, do I let him like
Figure it out.
or is it a more humane death to let Watson just kill him?
Yeah.
You know, is he gonna be like, does he have like internal bleeding now? Is he gonna be like just slow, painful death? I don't know. I just hate seeing it. You know, I know it's nature and I know it's totally what they're supposed to do. And of course Watson looks at me like, what's your problem?
I thought you wanted this.
Yeah, you know, he'll bring like you bring in a mouse or something, and he's like, "What? Why are you upset with me?" It's like, I don't want that in the house, man. You know. So anyway, so how's it going?
I think good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this early for you, or are you normally?
Yeah.
Okay, you're more.
It's early to be doing a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of like any work that I do takes place like at least after like 3 p.m. So.
Oh, that's true because you need the good lighting and stuff, right? Okay. So. But like even like when you do, I don't know what you call it, like edit. You do like editing? Is that what you call it, or like?
Yeah. Usually not.
Okay.
Not
early.
Early in the day. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry to
absolutely.
get you up out of bed.
No, it's totally fine.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, I usually start with just music because in general it's more like a non-controversial topic. And by the way, I like to say up front too, there's really nothing you can say to offend me today. There's nothing. I mean, as we discuss certain things that are hot topic issues or whatever, I mean, don't hold back. I mean, it's totally fine. If we disagree, that's no problem. I think you know me well enough to know that at this point. But so I know you're a music fan. Can you start by giving me like your earliest memory of music, whether it be doing it yourself or hearing it on the radio or just
yeah, you know, I guess as far as listening goes, and I didn't find this out until later, but when I was like 12 maybe, my parents were, or no, I was in my dad's truck and he was playing, there was Traveling Wilburys and there was someone else. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And there's a song that came on and I found out that they had played it like when I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night when I was a baby.
Oh.
My mom would like kind of bounce around the living room with me, and it had somehow like ingrained in my brain the beginning of that song. And I was like, this sounds so familiar, and it turns out that's what it was.
So when you heard it when you were 12.
Right, yeah. I was like, I recognize this, but there was no reason, because when you're 12 years old, you're not. You know.
Right. That's cool. What was the song? Do you know the name of the song?
American Dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was when Neil Young was still with them?
Honestly, I don't remember, because I've only listened to that album for like the weird nostalgia of it. I mean, obviously I like it, but I don't listen to it regularly. Yeah. And then other like earliest, and this is me making music. When I was 5, I begged my parents to get me a violin. Okay. So I played violin as a kid.
Nice. Can you still play it?
No, absolutely not.
How long did you play for?
3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you think you would have picked up something by then, right?
I mean, I don't know why I wanted that.
It's funny because, Asher wants to play the violin. That's what he keeps saying. I keep trying to get him to something a little more rockin', like a guitar, or drums, or something. He's like, I want to play the violin, And we're like, I don't know. But, because violin's one of those things, like, if you play it right, it's the most beautiful sounding thing ever.
But anything else is awful.
Yeah, but if you play it wrong, it's like the most awful sound ever.
Yeah.
So if you picked it up today, you don't think you'd be able to...
Oh, no.
It would be really bad.
No.
Okay.
But it was a really good foundation of musical knowledge, because even though I didn't retain how to play that, I learned like how sheet music works, and obviously different notes that transfer over to playing guitar, which I did later, and things like that. And so I'm glad that they went with it. Right. Like, that is like, you're absolutely right. And later, as I've heard other children or even adults attempting to play it, I'm like, I can't believe they just not one sign of irritation. Right. They're totally cool with me just playing for however long,
How many bands do we know that we like now where that's kind of the story? Like, there's always the one band member's parents who let them jam in the garage or something. Or, there's always got to be that parent that's like, oh, I'll let them make the racket, Maybe someday they'll go somewhere with it.
Right.
And of course, most don't, but, there's always that band that does.
I mean, I know in hindsight they had to find it annoying on some level. Right. But never let on to me. Right. And that, was the kind of child and the kind of person that if I had known that it was bothering them, I would have. Right. It would have totally deterred me.
But they never said anything to you.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's really cool. So you do play guitar today still, or
not really?
How.
I know how, and I like the idea of playing it. Chris and I guess like a year ago now, on a whim, we were driving and we went to the Oxnard Guitar Center. Okay. Is
that a bigger one, or?
I have no idea. Okay. It seems big.
I've been to a few. I've never been to that one, but they're all pretty big, seemingly. But...
yeah. Okay. It's a lot. I mean, growing up with like a Jensen's, it's obviously like the Walmart of musical instruments. Yeah. But I bought a guitar while I was there. Like, I already have like 3 guitars.
Oh,
and I was
really?
like, I'm just gonna like get this one, and it's been sitting. It's been very neglected. Okay. Chris is like, I've played it more than you have. I'm like, yeah, but it's there, and I'm like, someday we're gonna have fun together. But yeah.
But do you ever like write music, or?
Not really.
Okay.
Sometimes I have it on notes in my phone. I'll write down even just a thing that, like, a phrase or a thing that I think I'll just save this, and someday maybe it will be something. But
that might be lyrics.
I'm not actively writing any music.
Okay. Yeah, because I have, and I told this to Aiden one time, and he like, what? I have stuff from like probably when I was like 18, 19 up to even now that I do exactly what you just said. Yeah. Because I've never been like musical as far as writing music, but I mean, as far as like writing poetry or would-be song lyrics, that kind of thing. Yeah. I always jot stuff like that down, and I have just folders and folders like on my laptop of stuff. That's like, there's never, part of me is like, maybe I'll just send it to Aiden because he's doing music. Yeah. Like maybe he'll turn something into a song or something, because I mean, I
I'm not going to turn it into a song.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to do that. I can play a little bit of guitar, but not enough to actually do anything,
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So what would you say is the do you have like a specific like genre that you prefer over others? Do you like everything? Is there anything you hate?
I don't hate anything.
Okay. There's no genre of music that you're like, oh,
no.
that just sucks.
I think that over time, I've grown in waves to appreciate certain things more than others. I mean, I think that when I was, ages 12 to, 16 or 17, I probably intentionally closed off.
Right.
Certain, you just especially that was such a period of time where I was listening to very niche things and to your identity.
Right.
I think I can enjoy most things. I think at this point, the only things that I just don't want to listen to are a little group of songs that I hear at every single wedding.
Oh, because it's so much.
Once a week for the last 10 years, I've heard the same few songs that I would be totally okay never hearing again.
And are those just that kind of the traditional songs that people tend to play?
Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars.
Oh, of course. I never liked that song anyway. I know I'm in the outlier there. So many people love that song. I've never liked that song. I hate the lyrics. I hate the sound. And I like Bruno Mars. I like some of his other songs.
The lyrics are pure nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
I can sing all of them. I hate that I can sing all of them. I can tune it out a little at this point. I'm just kind of letting my mind wander, but there have been times I've just gone into the bathroom and just hung out in there for 3 minutes just to let it pass.
Oh man.
I'll say that if you're already in a state of being stressed, adding that song on top is not doing me any favors. It's just this again. And I don't know. That's really at the top of the list.
Okay.
And it's funny because that's the song that almost every time gets played because this is what's going to get people out there.
On the dance floor. Well, and there's the other one that I have no idea who it is, but they always play it. Well, there's 2 other ones that I can think of, and maybe it's the same song. But there's the one. It's always the ones where it gives you directions. What's the one now?
It's the line dancing
kind
thing.
of,
yeah.
right? But what's the one I'm thinking of where it says something about cha-cha one time?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That one. Ding, 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 ding. I have no idea who that is, but then there was another one, something about a leg, stinky leg, or is that the same song?
I don't know.
Shaking leg. I'm probably totally butchering the whole, but yeah, it's when you go to dances or weddings or places where there's going to be, those are always the ones that they throw out there. And I've never really liked dancey songs with nonsense lyrics that are just like the whoop, there it is, and I dip, you dip, we dip, and all those kind of ones that came out back in the day. It's I just can't stand this kind of music. It's brutal. Yeah. But like you, I can sing the lyrics to most of them.
Right.
Just because you
hear
repetition it so many times. Yeah. Wow. That's nuts. So what would be like a genre of music that you really like?
I mean, I love pretty much there's so many genres now. People are it's bedroom lo-fi.
I know. There's so many it's all the subgenres that I can't even have you heard this punk rock band? That's not punk rock, that's post-punk. Yeah. That's hardcore. It's dude, what are you talking about? It's punk rock,
Rock, folk, there's a lot of pop music that I really enjoy. But I'll say that there's definitely a cutoff. I couldn't tell you any pop music currently.
Okay.
Sans maybe whatever the breakout hit of the year is that plays in Target.
Right. But pop music more when you were younger, do you?
Yeah, when there was I feel like there was a time where there was a lot of, I guess, what do you even call it now? Because every time I try to think of a phrase, I'm that doesn't fit with what music is right now.
Right.
But think of when you think of a 2000s teen movie, what would be playing?
Okay.
That kind of pop rock, not pre-era of what band is big, a Good Charlotte or something like that. But, when there's radio hits that were fun little,
Right.
And I feel like that so much of what's on the radio is like very bassy and auto-tuned and
right. See,
I don't know. There's just a very specific genre, and I'm absolutely going through a phase right now of just being reminiscent of like, I don't know.
Of when music was good.
I don't know if I want to call it that, because there's so many good things being made right now.
Right.
And Chris gets all the credit for showing them to me.
Me too. There's a lot of bands I never heard until he showed them to me also. So.
Yeah, he knows, he has, you know, a gauge on the pulse of what's good in music. But I think that, you know, there's just songs that you hear, and even if you can't name the artist or the name of the song, you're just like immediately taken back to, you know, like almost even a memory that you don't even have specifically. You just remember like the inside of a Kmart.
Right.
in, like,
yeah, isn't that
2003,
weird?
Yeah.
And it's so weird, the feelings you get from that.
Right,
you know? It's
yeah.
just so strange.
Chris made me a CD one time. It was The Music You Forgot. And it was just like 30 songs like that.
Oh, really?
That were all songs that you know. As soon as you hear them, you're like, this one.
Right.
But that you, off the top of your head, you're not coming up with.
Right.
Like the Save Tonight, Eagle Eye Cherry.
Oh, yeah.
Songs like that.
Like one-hit wonders, right? But that one song meant so much.
Right.
And it gives you the feels, and it's just like, oh, I love that song. What else has he done? I have no idea.
Right, yeah.
When you look him up, oh, nothing.
Right. One Headlight by the Wallflowers.
Yes, another one. Yeah, there's another one.
So...
Yeah. Well, we were talking about 80s music in the last one of these I did, and how almost everybody in the 80s was like that. They were all the one-hit wonders,
right,
and it was like they just had that one single that just that popped them off, and everybody buy the album because you wanted that one song.
Right.
You know, this was before like iTunes. You could just buy one song for 99 cents or whatever. But it's just to where it seems like now these days people are more interested in, at least people I talk to that are really interested in music are like they want the feel of the whole album. It's like I love this whole album when I start to finish, you know, or whatever, you know. So that's what's kind of different from back then. But
yeah, I feel like there's so many people that rely on just like a Spotify shuffle, and that's, I don't want to use the word disheartening,
right?
But I feel like you're missing a whole piece. Yeah. You know, like an album is very intentional.
Yes.
And obviously, you know, there's albums where there's a song you skip.
Right.
Or, you know, whatever, but...
Right, but as you listen to an album, you're listening to a piece of art.
Yeah,
that these artists have made from beginning to end, right? And it's got a point and a purpose. And I mean, usually, I'm sure there's some bands that's like, I just throw some stuff on there, you know. But and I like with the Spotify thing. I don't even have Spotify. First of all, because I can't figure it out. I've tried to get it a few times, and people in my family try to get it from me. But I'm the kind of person who I like to listen to a CD. I mean, I still have CDs. I'm weird. But like,
you have many.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've seen them. Whole wall full. But it's like, for me, even if I get turned on to a new band, like to say I'm in, and this has happened before, I've been in the store somewhere and they're playing some song and I'll pull out the Shazam. Yeah. Who is this? I never heard of it. And it's like, oh, it's a band I never heard of. And when I go to start listening to that band, I start at their first album. I mean, as far back as I can go, even if it's like an unreleased demo or something. And I like to hear the progression of the band, even if it's not till their third or fourth album where they're actually really good. But it's just neat to hear them get there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's just kind of me, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, I think that there's something lost when it's just like you ask someone what's playing. There's like, oh, I just put on Coffee Shop Mood 4.
Right.
you know? It's, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I will find out what this is on my own then.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and that's not to say, I mean, I would put on, I just have the free Spotify on my laptop. I don't even, I don't have it on my phone or anything, where there's an ad every 3 songs that's much louder than the rest.
Right. Yeah.
The music that you're listening to.
Gotta love that.
But I think that there's a place where it's, you know, absolutely appropriate to do that, because it's, you know, if you have a coffee shop, maybe you want to put on that playlist and just, for 8 hours autopilot through it. But, Yeah, I don't know. And maybe this is coming from that I don't listen to music constantly. I think there's people who constantly have music playing.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I listen to it, you know, it's Chris and I going for a drive and it's the CD that's in the player. Or I don't even... I hate the car that I have right now.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get this car because my car of the last 10 years finally just was done. I had already sunk in thousands of dollars to keep it going, and it just reached a point where it's like the cutoff.
Yeah.
And I got this in February when there's like no cars on the lots because of all the manufacturing delays and things like that. And so I got this one. It does not have a CD player.
Oh, no.
And I thought it would be a breeze to get that installed. I'm like, I'll pay the extra whatever it is to get it installed. You can't.
Right.
And there's even a place in the little deck that looks so much, it's perfectly shaped to just put a CD in there. And I finally, after calling Best Buy and places that do stereo things, I found one place in town that said that they could install a CD player. It would cost $700. And it's this little square box thing, and the only place it could go is under the driver's seat.
What?
And so, yeah.
It's not very accessible.
No, and it is the most basic looking little gray box, and you would have to take the CD, like lean under your seat and put the CD in and then take it out.
Wow.
And so I honestly I just have the radio very quietly playing.
I was going to ask,
in
did
the background.
you do it?
I did not.
Or do you say, no way, that's not worth that much money?
My hope is that maybe once weddings end for this year and I have a couple
like when
I can go
end.
get a different car.
That sounded funny until you said for this year. I was like, I don't think weddings are ever going to end. At least I hope they don't.
I hope they don't. But yeah, so.
But do you have like any kind of like a?
I have Bluetooth.
Bluetooth, yeah.
It's.
No.
I don't know. The thing is that I don't like that the Bluetooth is everything's connected.
Right.
If it was just for music, I would be much more on board with using it all the time and putting something on. But the fact that when you get a phone call, it's then through the car and it's like sounds awful.
Right.
And then I'm like yelling at my steering wheel, being like, "Hi, like, I'm driving."
Well, the worst is when you got a great song playing, and it's just getting to the big breakdown part you've been waiting for, and then somebody calls you,
right?
And then you're mad at that person, like, "Dude, didn't you know I was about to get to this drum solo right here? I mean, come on."
Or the GPS turn on.
Right. Well, I've turned that because I deliver pizzas now a couple nights a week. So I've
nice.
Yeah. So and I rely on that GPS now, especially because back when I used to deliver pizzas years and years ago, I didn't need it.
Yeah.
But now I don't know if it's just kind of older now or what, but I'm like, I don't know where I mean, my direction is so bad. Bethany and I go on trips and she has to be my navigator. Yeah. But now that I have the GPS, it's nice. But I actually have just turned the voice off.
Oh yeah,
because it kept bothering me because even if I'm on the 101 and I'm driving for 3 hours straight, I know I'm not leaving the 101 for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It keeps telling me in 3 miles, stay on the 101. Yeah. Really? Well, gee, thanks for that. Great. You know, it's like, of course I'm going to stay on the one, and it would break into my song. So anyway, I just turn that off and I just look at the directions. So for the most part, unless I'm like in an inner city or something where there's a lot of quick turns and stuff, I might turn it on just because it's usually pretty good about that. But so what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say about playlists. I mean, I definitely like playlists. I have lots of playlists, but I think that's a different kind of listening than... Well,
you're curating them, right? Like you're the one putting it together.
Okay, that's true. That's the point. Like with Spotify, sometimes they just put stuff on it for you. Yeah, so I've made a bunch of my own playlists, which works out nice. Like if I'm like, we're playing a board game or something,
absolutely.
I'll put on my mellow playlist, or we're on a trip to Disneyland, I have a Disney playlist and that kind of thing. And that's really cool, but I think it's a different kind of listening than intentionally sitting down and saying, okay, I got this band's new album. I want to listen to it from beginning to end. I really want to just immerse myself in it. And, which I don't do very often anymore. I used to do that a lot more when I was younger. And I think it's mainly just because I don't have as much time as I used to.
Yeah.
Because now it's kind of like, oh, I'll listen to a couple songs on the way to work and then maybe a couple more on the way back. But then, like I was saying, someone will call, so I end up talking on the phone on the rest of my way back from work. But so you don't, back to the genre thing. So you can't really pick one. You just kind of.
Yeah, you know, I think everything. It would be. Yeah, I mean, there's just. I think that there's moods to what it is, but yeah, I think that there's just so many. I mean, like a year ago, there's a girl that shoots a lot of weddings with me, and we just like the whole 2 days we were together just listened to Celine Dion.
Oh, nice.
I can't tell you she's French Canadian. I can tell you that. But for the most part, I couldn't tell you anything about Celine Dion. But for those 2 days, it's like, this is everything right now.
Right.
And then, you know, there's a song that you remember that you go through a phase of like that's stuck in your head for a day. And,
right. Did you ever see the SNL skit where I forgot what I think it was Anna Gasteyer, I think her name was.
Oh,
where she would play Celine Dion.
No.
Oh, they're funny. And then it would be Sherry O'Terry would play Mariah Carey.
Oh, nice.
And they would kind of like be battling. And there was a few other pop singers in there too.
Yeah.
But Celine Dion would always say, "'Cause I'm the most wonderful singer in the world." she would like keep saying that over and over.
Yeah.
Just to crack up. But yeah, Celine Dion was with the Titanic song.
Right.
First got her
big
on that. Bethany used to be really. I was never a huge fan. Not that I disliked her, but
yeah. It's so over the top. It's like inappropriately over the top. I think that's why we were having so much fun, is because like you start listening to them lyrically and then the production is huge.
Right.
And it's just like, what is this about? And we were doing the voice and all the little, you know, subtleties of how she says a certain word.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome.
I think that as far as, I mean, I used to be so on top of different, you know, bands and music that was coming out and things like that, you know, especially like in high school and things like that.
Right.
And I think that I almost like overthink it in a way now where it's like I want to listen to something and I want to do it when I'm like don't have anything else on my mind. There's a lot of times where I drive a lot by myself, and there's just like I know consciously I'm not in the mindset that I'm going to appreciate this. I'm not even going to be listening to it. My brain is somewhere else. And so...
Is that because you're focused on maybe the job that you're going to?
And just like that, and I don't want to say that I get nervous, because I don't really get nervous, but there's definitely a level of just like I'm in a different state of mind right now where I'm not going to appreciate something that I know that I'm going to like.
Right. Do you worry about, like, when you go to do a wedding, do you worry about, are you kind of a perfectionist in a sense? Like, or are you worried that people are going to be disappointed with what you do, or?
Not usually. I think the thing that most weddings and events that I go to, I am going to something where people that I've never met in person before. And
which that's got to be kind of scary.
I usually feel okay about it. I usually get the vibe of who they are, just in even the way they write an email, and how they've communicated with me up till that point. And a big majority of the weddings that I do, the planner is someone that I've worked with for many years now, and I trust her absolutely. And so I know that she's going to take care of the, like, logistical stress of most things. But there is just a lot of unknowns that you're walking into, and I feel pretty confident for most of them that it will all be okay. But there's a big difference between a thing on paper of like what is happening when, me having the knowledge that's absolutely not going to happen that way, that this is basically a guideline, but the human element of everything is going to, at some point, throw this off.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a lot of timing and logistics too, especially when you're traveling, that it's like, I am in LA traffic. I am going to get there 5 minutes late. As soon as I get there, I am going to grab the thing that's in the trunk. I'm going to go to here. I'm going to get the, just
your mental planning. And
it almost always, everything's already running late. And there's so many other things. And what I try to remind anyone who's not the couple is like, it's not about you. Right. So,
right. But everybody tries to make it about them, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, yeah.
A lot of, and there's a lot of people that, just, I don't think realize how insignificant the things they're worrying about are.
Right.
And so I try really hard to keep everyone's feet on the ground, but yeah. And so, there's times where I'm like, God, like I look like I've been sitting in the car for 4 hours. Right. I am 5 minutes late, and you worry for a minute that you're going to be the problem. And it's like, nobody knows that you're there. Right. It's like, this doesn't matter. Like, right. So.
Right. Well, but it does. I mean, it does matter.
It matters.
That's like the one thing from the wedding that's going to be kept.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like that's.
But that's the thing they're going to remember. Mm-hmm. I think a lot more than me.
Right.
They're going to.
Oh, than you as the photographer, as opposed to the photos themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so, I mean, my goal for the most part is I try to make people feel like. And I joke with them, but it's just like, this is totally cool. This is casual. This is just a regular day. And they always laugh because this is the most done up they've ever looked in their lives.
Right,
and
right.
It's insane and crazy. Yeah. But, I try to make them laugh and just be like a normal person to them. And then I leave, and the thing that they remember is the pictures.
Right.
So.
Right. That's cool. That's an important job, I think.
Yeah. I try to remind people it's historical. Mm-hmm. That's what I always try to let people remember, is when it, the photos of the two of them and the photos with their parents are really cool, and grandparents are there. It's just like, this is a little piece of history. Right. Somebody's going to find this someday. I mean, I can't really say in a shoebox because nobody prints anything anymore.
Right.
But,
exactly.
Someone's going to find this on your hard drive someday.
Right. Do you mostly do weddings? Is that the majority of your work? Or
probably, yeah.
Okay. But you do other
I do other things, but weddings is how I make money.
Right.
It's kind of hard to sustain.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was a time you were doing something with pets too, right? You were doing pet photos. Did that go anywhere?
I do that just like probably once a year. I come up with like, there's a day where I'm just going to like on Saturday from 1 to 5, come with your pet and I'll do this thing.
You get a big turnout for that, or?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
More than I ever think I will.
Right.
If I could do that full time, what a delight. But yeah, that's just something I've done for fun occasionally.
Yeah. Is it almost always dogs? It's always dogs, right?
I want to say it's like always dogs. I'm trying. Yeah, I wish. I always try to encourage people. It's like,
bring your camel out. It'll be great.
Yeah, I guess horses. You know what? Horses.
Oh,
I've done a lot of photos of people with horses.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Which, if you think about it, horses live to be like 25 years old.
Wow.
So that's a big part of your life that you've got that animal around.
It's a family member.
Yeah. And so I've done that pretty frequently. I mean, in the scheme of animals that people have. But dogs are the most significant.
Very cool.
Dogs are good sports.
Usually, yeah.
But
yeah, did you ever hear that? I know you guys like stand-up comedy, or at least I know Chris does. I guess I don't really know if you do or not. But there's that Jim Gaffigan skit where he's talking about the difference between cats and dogs. And he talks about how people are more like cats because we're finicky eaters, and we're like, that's it. And he's like, dogs are happy to be anywhere.
Yeah.
They don't care. What is that? Throw up? I'll eat it. I don't care. I'm just happy to be here.
Right. Yeah. No.
All right. So let's back to the music a little more. Can you give me an example of a band or a singer or an artist, a musical artist in some way that's had a huge impact on your life personally? I mean, and it can be from any stage of life, whether it was, the early years or even now.
I mean, you want to talk about Chris?
Well, of course, he's had an impact on your life. But that's probably not just his music. I'm sure that's obviously,
It's how we met.
Okay. Okay, I don't think I know that story.
Yeah, I was in a band in high school, and everybody knew Chris's music.
Okay.
And so the guy that I was playing music with, it's like we knew that it's like the guy that we have to get a show with is Chris.
Okay. Did you guys go to high school together, or?
We just missed each other.
Okay.
He graduated in the same year that I started. And so, but we had the same pool of friends, and there was a big overlap in that. And so...
Okay. So you're in high school in a band, but Chris has already graduated,
right,
and he's doing his solo music, I'm guessing, at this
Yes,
point.
yeah. And when he was in A Silent Explosion, there were many, I mean, I want to say majority girls. I'm sure there were guys too, but they don't, do things the same way. But there are a lot of girls who were like... Yeah. Putting up posters for their shows, had their sticker on their binder,
nice.
And I was totally just like, no, just because they were so into it,
right.
I didn't go.
Right.
I just outright was like, I'm not going to participate in that.
Yeah.
And I'm full of regret that, I mean, it's like, oh, I could have seen him. I could have seen one of those shows, and I absolutely
but maybe
not.
That would have changed everything. Like
maybe.
Sometimes the way you guys met is unique.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
what if you would have met then and you would have been one of those fangirls at a show, it would probably have been totally different.
Right.
So anyway, so you're in a band, and then you guys met.
Yeah, and so the first show that we played was with Chris.
Okay. Your first show ever?
Yeah.
As a band?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And what did you do in this band? Were you
I sang and played guitar, yeah.
You sang too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and the guy that I was playing with sang and played guitar. The guy was a much better guitar player.
Okay.
He's, I think, still playing guitar, but yeah, it was very bare bones, folksy type thing.
It's just two people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually we had a third. We were only playing for like 2 years, year and a half, something like that. We played a lot of shows in that period of time, but yeah, and so and then became friends with Chris, played more shows with him, became really close friends. We were close friends for 2 years before we started dating.
Okay. That's awesome. That's good that it starts out that way.
I don't understand when it doesn't work out that way for people.
Right.
I've never been in a relationship with someone that I wasn't already very good friends with.
Right.
And so the idea of just going on a date with someone that you don't know,
that's terrifying.
Is borderline psychotic to me. And just there's people that end up with a person, and I've joked with friends who have done this because I'm just like, do you really know him?
Right.
Like,
right.
What secrets lie beneath this person that you just met at a Buffalo Wild Wings and are now living with?
Yeah, and how much can you really get to know somebody just by that? You know what I mean? That's why it's usually best and works better if it's a situation where you work with somebody for a long time, or in your case, you're on tour with somebody, or you're getting to know them without trying to make it a romantic thing. You're just like, I'm just here, and I just happen to be getting to know this person, and I'm starting to like him a little more than friendship,
yeah, exactly, yeah. So. I have no idea how that works.
So where this show that you guys first played together, was it here in town, or was it? Okay.
Yeah. We have the flyer for it framed on our wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's awesome. What was the name of your band?
My Name is Circus.
Ooh, nice.
I know.
Very artsy.
Yeah.
Very artsy.
Yeah.
Have you seen Band Slam? The movie Band Slam? Oh, okay. They come up with the name of a band. I can't go on, I'll go on. It's supposed to be like this artsy thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a time.
Was that your, the title, was it your?
I don't even remember how we came up with it.
Okay.
I think we were joking and tossing things around, and that's what stuck. And you think of a thing, you're like, I could see that on a piece of paper.
Right. Well, my next question is going to be, is that, do you have any of this stuff recorded? Because, do you?
I do. I truly, though, honestly, I don't know where I could physically find it.
Okay. Because I'd love to hear it. I really would. You're probably like, no, nobody's ever going to hear that. I'm not sure if that's something you're proud of or not, but, I love hearing that stuff.
It wouldn't thrill me if you listened to it, but it wouldn't ruin my life either.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's very much two 17-year-old children monkeying around.
That's awesome, though. That's some of my favorite music, honestly. And people are like, that sounds, even if it's like a demo tape that I have, because when I lived down in San Diego for 7 months, everybody was in a band down there.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was in a band, and they all had the demo tapes with the 8 songs on it, 4 on one side and 4 on the other. And I had a bunch of those when I come back, and I still listen to them even now. Yeah. I've actually gone through and put some of them on CDs so I can put them on my iTunes and the whole thing, but the recording is awful because it's like this, I mean, it's horrible.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's a bunch of high school kids in a garage just, playing punk rock or whatever,
Right. I mean, I think that there was just... It was way less the actual making music, and it was the experience of everything. It was everybody that we were friends with and that we knew and that we played shows with and going to, different towns and doing it. And I ended up kind of shifting towards booking shows and setting them up.
Okay.
And I don't know. It was just the entire experience of it, much more than the actual making music.
Okay. So what would you say got you to that point, though? Like, what was there a certain band or a certain something as a younger person that you're like, oh, I would love to do what she's doing, or I really want to try to sound like that group? Or...
Not really. I mean, I think that it was so many people around me were actively making music. And
felt left out.
I know, right? I think that it was, there was a lot of music that I listened to that I loved, and I liked the idea of writing songs and things like that. But there's not like an aha moment for me that stands out. It just kind of all fell into place. It was meeting someone who also wanted to do something similar and being friends with them and just kind of the fun of it, I guess.
Right. And this guy still makes music, you said, you think?
He noodles around.
Okay.
He still kind of plays. He absolutely is not recording anything or playing with anybody, but we both met through doing, actually, in high school, the filmmaking program that's there.
Is that Mr. Plante?
Garcia.
Oh, okay.
It was
Plante
at Rigetti.
when I was there at Rigetti. He did the film department.
But and he ended up doing that for a couple years. And then I make fun of him because there's this really competitive UCLA film program that's very hard to get into. He got into it, and then he works for Airbnb now.
Oh, wow.
He does nothing to do with film anymore. And I'm like, you squandered it. I did too, though. I mean, in a way, I'm doing visual, that kind of thing. But, so anyway.
Were you wanting to get into film at some point?
Oh, yeah. So that was what I was all about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did it all 4 years of high school. I found out too when I was a sophomore that the way that they structure your class schedule, at least at Rigetti and I'm sure most California public schools, is giving you the credentials to get into like a CSU or UC school, like a basic university. And I found out that that's what they're basing it on. And so I found out that if you are planning on going to a private art school, you can toss a lot of that out the window.
Really? Oh, man.
Because it doesn't really matter. And so I stopped taking math when I was 15 years old.
Oh, boy.
Which was the bane of my entire school academic experience.
Right. Well, because you're artistic.
I guess it's...
People are either one or the other, it seems like, right?
Yeah, and the thing, I wasn't bad at it for the most part. I tried and I always passed and did okay. I just hated it and it frustrated me. And so I just, stopped doing all of those things that I had no interest in. I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. And so I did... 2 film classes a year, and I did, AP English and all those things that I still really liked. But I structured everything around doing film, and that's what I...
Did you have a specific a role in filmmaking you wanted? Did you want to be a director, screenwriter?
Yeah, I loved the production and directing aspect of it. I did everything else because you need... a means to an end when,
Right.
But...
Did you ever like screenwriting, though? Did you ever find yourself writing any scripts?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Okay.
But I think I just like the concept. Like, I like coming up with an idea or a concept for something. Writing dialogue is the worst thing.
Right.
It is so underestimated, that aspect. I mean, same for a book.
Right.
Anything that you're, trying to emulate a real human being.
Yeah. It has to sound real, right? Like you have to have these characters that are their own unique personalities, but they have to be talking to each other in a way that they're like making not just making sense, but like really sounding like real people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you can see through it immediately.
Right.
And I mean, that's with so many things. My mom worked in design for, I mean, she still loves design, but she always told me that not anybody can design something well, but everybody can recognize good design.
Right.
You walk into a room and you're like, this looks terrible. You don't know how to fix it necessarily, but this is bad. And that goes for so many things where, but anyway, so, so I absolutely love that. And I was planning to do that for all of college and career, etc.
And then...
and then I dropped out like a real winner.
Oh, you got farther than I did.
I just, I graduated high school and then I started the school year of doing, at a private film school, and I was out of there within like 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So...
Did you like lose the fire, or were you
I love a lot of aspects of it. I kind of, I think, got the reality check that this was going to be the rest of my life and nothing else was going to be. And that freaked me out.
Okay.
They had this thing where once a week, it was a small school, all the students would come and they would have somebody that currently worked in the industry come talk for like an hour.
Nice.
We had the guy who like wrote Iron Man come in. We had people who worked on TV shows. And so one guy came in, he basically went through his career, but then it started kind of coming out that he had like missed all of his kids' birthdays. And all of these, like, kind of, I mean, to me, I was just like, I don't know if anyone else felt this way, but it completely, I was just like, this is what the trade-off is.
Right. That's ultimately what led me away, because I was kind of on the same path. I was wanting to do film. I wanted to do either directing or screenwriting. I took some classes at Hancock, and I was kind of on that path.
Yeah.
But then Alora was born. And I started kind of weighing it out, going, okay, I'm going to have a daughter. I mean, how am I going to do this? Like, how can I really go to Hollywood and try to make a name in Hollywood if I have a family now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, So that was kind of like where but I'm like you. To this day, I'm still fascinated by it. I watch movies and I break things down in ways that people are like, dude, can't you just enjoy this movie? I'm like, no, look at that. Look at the camera angle there and the way that it's reflecting off this. And like, do you see what he's doing there? And like all this stuff. And they're like, no, dude, just enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, this is awesome. This is so artistic, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that about it. I just assume you've always just been photography. It's always been
yeah. I mean, I did photography all through high school. My dad gave me one of his film cameras, and I did that. And I still have a bunch of photos that I took of all my friends in high school and things like that. But yeah, I think it's just I already had all of the means to put, a photo is like video, but way easier.
Right.
So, yeah, but
especially these days with it all being all digital.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like the old days where you had to have film and all that stuff.
Right. So yeah, that's
okay. All right. Well, to round out the music section, how about can you give me some of your favorite bands, artists, anything that's been, and it can even be a phase. It could be like, oh, when I was into this band for a whole year and now I think they suck, or I can't even listen to it anymore, or whatever. I mean, or something that stands the test of time that you're still into today that you know.
Yeah. Chris just told me, he's like, Ryan's gonna ask you. He said, what's your favorite band? I said, you.
He said, don't say that.
He said, doesn't count.
Oh, it doesn't count.
I'm not a band.
You're biased.
I mean, currently right now, if I was to pick a band, it would be, and we've seen them like, I think 5 times now.
Okay.
The National. Have you ever listened to them?
Never heard of it.
I found them when I was in high school, and they're described as sad dad rock.
Okay. I'm sure that's a compliment to them.
Yeah, and as a 17-year-old girl, what a thing to be really into. But
so it's the National?
The National.
Not the Nationals.
Nope, the National.
The National.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason that I got into them at that time was that they're it's very moody, but there's kind of a storytelling, kind of cinematic, I don't even know how to describe it. The lyrics are often kind of like stream of consciousness, not necessarily like a song about a girl and then the chorus and then it's very kind of abstract and
it's like deeper.
I don't know if it's deeper.
Because there's abstract in the sense of just for abstract sake, and then there's people that actually mean
there's a poetic
something.
quality to it,
right.
But I think that at the time of doing a lot of kind of filmmaking things, it just I could picture things when I listened to it in a way. It was very and that's with a lot of music too. It's just I don't know if other people do it, but whenever there's a good song, I'm picturing it in my head in a way. Even if it's not related, you
right. Is there
I'm gonna listen back to that and be like, what were you talking about?
Is there a band that you could say that they're similar to, that I could kind of have an idea of what they sound? Are they totally unique on their own?
No, I'm sure that there is, and I'll think as soon as I drive away.
Of course. Yeah.
It's the singer's very baritone. I know Laura's really into Taylor Swift. Are you into Taylor Swift?
I am into Taylor Swift. Only because of Laura.
The Dessner brothers are both from The National, and
okay.
One of them produced a lot of Taylor Swift's newer music.
That doesn't mean it sounds like Taylor Swift.
No, absolutely not. But if you're trying to pull, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then honestly, there's a lot that I love, and I'm gonna regret how not articulate I sound about any of it.
No, you're fine. I know for me, I like most music. Very rarely do I hear songs or bands where I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the worst.
Right.
Most of that'll fall into the category of like newer hip hop, like coming out like now. Yeah. Most of it I can't stand it, and I love old hip hop, but but most music I'm like, yeah, I like that. But then every once in a while, usually happens every year or two, I hear something where I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like, I have to have everything that they've ever released. And I usually end up getting it within the span of a week. I'll get on the internet. I'm like, okay, what do they have? What's this? Okay, old this. Okay, I can get this one on this place. I can buy this here. I can do this. Okay, this is rare. I got to find some way to get that, or whatever. And so I guess, is there anything like that for you that you've had like recently, or is it more like just kind of like a background thing mostly for you?
No, we just saw last month Bright Eyes.
Okay. Another one I'd never heard of until Chris introduced me. Because he covers one of the songs, I believe.
Yes.
I forgot the name of the song he covers. But
we both listened to them in high school and afterwards. But I don't know if I can say all because there's so many of them, but I had a lot of their albums in high school and haven't revisited many of them. Chris showed me their latest album, like while we were in preparation to the show.
Right.
But that was one that I vacuumed up so much of their music. And then listening to it now, it's like, it sounds just like how you remember it.
Oh, nice.
Oh my gosh. Recently, not necessarily. It kind of gets to a point where there's just almost like too much. Taylor Swift is one of those where I like her music when I hear it, and I know there's albums that I know well, but I just feel like there is a point where it just overnight there's like 5 albums now that I haven't listened to, and it's just like too much.
Well, it seems like she puts one out every 6 months lately. It seems like that anyway.
Popping them out.
Yeah.
I love physically buying albums.
Yeah.
Like I never download music ever.
Right.
I love the experience of, buying. I like seeing all of them in a row on the shelf.
Yep. We're a dying breed. You realize that, right?
I know.
Most people are like CDs.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of records.
Oh, and records too. Yeah. Okay.
Which I love even more. I love a good tactile experience. Of something like that.
Do you like the sound of it on vinyl?
I do, but I'm not one of those people that's like, it's so much better. It's great. It's great either way. As long as you can hear it, I'm fine.
I found myself only buying vinyl when it was the only way you could get a certain song. And of course, this is back before MP3s and all that, because a lot of stuff you can just get online.
Oh, now, right?
But like back in the 90s when I was in real heavy into the punk rock scene and stuff, a lot of those bands would release 7-inch records.
Right,
with like 4 songs that you could only get on that record. Like they'd never release it on their CDs, and there was no other way to get it. So I find myself like listening to this somewhat, I say crappy sounding, but it's like a lot of people love it, the popping and the hissing and the whole thing. There's some kind of nostalgic and cool about that.
To that.
But at the same time I'm thinking, man, I wish they would release this on CD too, so it's a little better quality sounding so I can crank it up in my car or something, but and I ended up I had a lot of those, and I ended up selling a lot of them off because a lot of those become collector's items.
Like
there was a couple 7-inch records I think I bought for like $4, and then I sold for like, I had an AFI 7-inch. Are you familiar with AFI?
Yeah. Not since
forever.
15 years ago.
Yeah, so this is long. So when they had their All Hallows EP come out, which is one of my favorites. That one and Black Sails is my 2 favorites.
I have that vinyl.
Do you really?
I think so.
Oh, is it on the orange?
I don't know.
That's going to be worth some cash. You
might want to look into it. A guy in high school that I dated, I think either gave it to me or left it at my house, and I have it on my shelf.
Oh. That guy's kicking himself now, because back then I sold it for like $50, and that was back 98, 99, and that was before. That was back when it was still like Black Sails. I think what was after Black Sails? The Art of Drowning. I think The Art of Drowning had just come out. So, but it still wasn't quite when they really took off. Like it wasn't until like Sing the Sorrow and like some of those that, some of those songs were really putting them big time out there, out of the underground
mainstream
punk scene. And it was like everybody knew who they were. I had somebody we were talking about on this one time, and he goes, I mentioned AFI. He goes, "You mean the emo band?" And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
More than that.
Yeah. That's kind of what they've morphed into, but way back in the, I mean, and I like the new stuff too. It's good, but I definitely like that. All Hallows and Black Sails is my favorite era. Of, they started doing those choruses, and when I saw them live, the whole crowd would sing the chorus. It was just, it was so awesome. Yeah. Like, this is fantastic.
Before you move away from music, what's your favorite one of Chris's albums?
Oh, wow. That's a hard one. It's funny you asked, though, because recently I've been being drawn back to them. So I've been I listened to Dipso a couple weeks ago on my drive out to Cuyama. I just listened to The Weatherman yesterday. Nice. Actually, it's so funny you'd ask this, because I haven't listened to a lot of it in a long time. That's hard. So, there's a lot of songs that are my favorite songs of his that are on songs I like to sing into your open mouth.
Okay, yeah.
Like Who Needs the World and oh shoot, I'm gonna forget all the names now. What's the I'm gonna forget the titles. I'm horrible with titles. But there's a bunch. Oh no, the one about the prostitute.
Oh yeah.
I love that song.
Wow. Wait in line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not sure if is that the name of the song?
I think so.
You have to wait in line. Yeah. I love that one. And of course, I think I Fell in Love in a Coffee Shop's on there, and The Circle and the Saints on there. It just kind of that acoustic. But then I really do like the Krakatoa. I enjoyed that one. Weatherman, I think, as a whole is just really, after listening to it yesterday again, just thinking, man, this is such a really cool sounding stuff. Warp and Woof, I really liked. Yeah. Because it had that, it reminded me of like the 90s grunge stuff.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, because that 90s grunge is what got me out of hip hop. That's all I would listen to until like 90, 91, when Pearl Jam's 10 came out.
Nice.
Nevermind by Nirvana. Had Bad Motorfinger by Soundgarden, and some of these, Alice in Chains, Dirt, and like these just albums that were so formative for me in that time. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then of course that led into punk rock, because I'm sure you've heard that story, but my parents got me tickets to see Pearl Jam. So cool. in Golden Gate, and we went and saw them, and Bad Religion opened up, and I had never heard anything, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they came out, they opened with 21st Century Digital Boy, and I was like, okay, so that was one of those moments I was telling you about. I came back here, and I went to, back when we had Circuit City.
Yay!
And I went to, I went to Circuit City. I was like, okay, Bad Religion. I bought every Bad Religion album that they had in stock.
Wow.
At Circuit City in the same day, because back then it was like I was still living with my parents. Yeah. I was working a pizza job at night, so I was making all these tips. I had a wallet full of ones. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get all these albums, and then from there it's just my favorite genre. So, but yeah, the Chris, that's a hard. How about you? Do you have a favorite? Can you actually pick a favorite?
I can pick a favorite based on not just the music, but I love the album Phoebe. Mm-hmm.
It's about you, isn't it?
I can't. It is a captured period of time. Okay. That is. There's a lot of his music that it's really hard to detach the emotional aspect of it. Right. No matter the time period, because I think about what he was feeling, or what that, whole year, or whatever it was, is. Right. And not to say I don't appreciate the music, but it's hard not to just get emotional listening. Right. Like, putting it on, it's like, okay, buckle up, gonna probably cry at some point.
Where's the Kleenex? Make sure there's a full box over here.
The Weatherman's another one of those albums. It's just gorgeous. Right. And there's so much intentional songwriting and wordsmithing that is in it. Right. But it's also even just melodically like heartbreaking sometimes. Mm-hmm. And even from when I remember when he made the Great Dipso Drought, and that still is such a... Mm-hmm. I knew at the time that this was unlike anything anyone around us was making, but now looking at it, it's like, I can't believe that like a 21-year-old boy made that.
Yeah, and I told this to Kathy when it was coming out, when she was telling me the concept of it. I was like, wait, he's 21 and he's writing a song or an album about the ill effects of alcoholism.
Right, yeah.
And most 21-year-olds are out enjoying the effects of alcoholism.
Right, yeah.
And here's this kid who's writing this album. Were you guys together when he wrote that one or no?
Okay. I remember very specifically talking to him when he was trying to figure out how to finish it, because he did it at 2 different studios.
Okay.
And him telling me about it, and I went to the album release show for it.
Yeah, I was there too. Nice.
Yeah.
Bethany was there too.
Wow.
At the Lions? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
It's all hot in there. It was in the summertime. I remember it being so hot in
August,
there. It was
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it's so sweltering in here.
Yeah. I don't remember that.
Okay.
Glad you've got that to attach to it. How sweaty you were. But yeah, it was... I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to take a lot of the things he makes for granted, because he executes everything so well.
Right.
And
yeah. What a show off.
How dare he? The nerve. But yeah, it's incredible the things that he managed to figure out at an early age, and from that point you're able to just, if you work at it,
right,
be so good by the time you're 20, 25, 30, 35.
And the hardest part for me in the whole thing is that most of all that is completely unrecognized.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I know that doing the podcast now has shot him to a different level of fame in a sense, but it's like, and I kept hoping through all that, I'm like, man, maybe now people will go back and start listening to oh, wait, he's a musician?
Right.
I had no idea he was a musician, you know, because it's just sad to me. There's so many fantastically written songs that most people have never heard, you know? Something interesting that you just gave me a reason to share. Thank you. So on Dipso Drought, there's the number 828 on the thing. Okay. So when that first came out, I originally thought that was interesting because my anniversary with Bethany is August 28th.
No way.
So I remember telling Kathy, oh, how funny, 828. And she goes, yeah, Chris just had that number. Just kept popping in his head for some reason. I was like, okay. So then years later, and this is all like recent, like in the last 6 months, right? So we started watching this show called Manifest. Have you seen or heard the show?
No.
So it's when there's a plane.
Okay.
And there's a family, and they're coming back from Jamaica, and they're all waiting to take their connecting flight. Well, then it opens up. There's one plane leaving sooner, so half the family gets on that plane, and the other half stays behind. So the half that stays behind, they get on their plane, they take their flight. Well, then they land back. When they land, it's been 5 years that has gone by. Oh. So a guy gets off the plane. His wife is with somebody else because she assumes he's dead.
Castaway.
Kind of, right? Yeah. and the dad had one of the twins with him. The mom took the other twin. Oh. So now the one twin is 5 years older than the other twin.
Yeah.
And there's way much more to this. Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool show. There's all kind of other stuff that ends up happening. We're like halfway through season 2 at this point. I told Laura about it, and her and Kewen busted through it in like no time. Yeah. But anyway, my point is the flight 828.
Wow.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I started telling Kathy about this. I was like, this is uncanny. This is just too weird. So then I'm out there the other day, and a couple weeks back, and I'm doing library cards. Like, we have a whole stack of new library cards that we're supposed to, use to give people new cards. The first 3 digits on every single one of them, 828. I'm like, this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
So then there's this band called J Church. I don't know if you ever heard of the band J Church, old punk band from the 80s and 90s. And I recently got back into them, and I was doing that thing where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look at all this, whatever I don't have by them. I'm gonna find all the rare songs. That's just what I do. So I'm on the computer and I'm looking up, and I find some of these albums that are like compilations of old songs that were on like singles and stuff that were never released on an official album.
Yeah.
And I get down to the last song on one of these. It was that the title is, it was a time. So it's like 8:28. I'm going, okay, like, what is up with this number? And then I start thinking weird stuff. Am I going to die on August 28th? Like, what? Like, why does this number keep popping up in my head? And Bethany's like, well, maybe it's just one of those things that you're focused on now. I'm like, I don't know. That's a little too weird. Maybe if it was like a 1-digit number or something, but it's like, we're talking about 3 consecutive numbers. Like, it's just too weird.
Has Chris told you about, like, how he came up with that?
If he did, I don't remember.
The number kept coming up to him and popping up, and he ended up looking it up, and it was the area code to a town that had, just like in the album, like a mountain with twin rivers and everything. Yeah, and
that was that before or after he put it on the cover? Or is that
before.
Why? So that's why he put it on the cover. Okay.
But I sent whenever, like, we're in the car and the clock's 8:28. It's like, oh, look, 8:28. But also he, our anniversary is 525.
Okay.
And if you listen to the Weatherman, there's a line neck and neck and 5 to 5.
Oh yeah.
And the timestamp of
that's one of my favorite songs on there. That's the train spouting steam one, right? Right? Yeah.
But that number, same thing, will pop up, but it's also the date for Kristen Smart's disappearance.
525 is?
525, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
We're all connected somehow.
Yeah, it's funny how those things, because I agree. I think it's more than when it's a certain combination, it starts reaching a point where it's like,
right.
When people are like, oh, the number 4, it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it means, but it's, at least, if anything, it's fun.
Right.
And something like that pops up, and it...
Yeah.
I'm sure there's an element to you are more aware of it, but it does seem like there's some...
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Some little magic happening.
Yeah. All right, well, speaking of fun, you want to get into some political discussion?
Sure.
This part will be kind of fun for me because I really don't know much of your thoughts on these things. Because it's not like when you come over for Heads Up Night or something. It's like, hey, let's talk about politics and spirituality.
Any great starter to a party.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And that's why I don't know if you listened to the trailer that came out for this.
I did, yeah.
Where I'm like, these are the 2 things that people always never talk about these. But would you consider yourself to be a political person at all?
No.
Or not really?
No.
So when you say that, do you mean that you don't follow government stuff or do you just not really have a strong opinion on anything?
I think that I have a general awareness of things happening. I'm definitely not making an effort to keep up on it every day.
Right.
I could tell you about general events and things going on. I will read sometimes a couple headlines in a day.
Okay.
But
are there any that make you shake your head or make you say yes?
There's things that I, in the privacy of my own home, react to in the moment, but I don't really, not carrying it with me in my life.
You don't let it affect you too much.
No, and there's, there's certain things that come up more and more, and Chris and I'll talk about them or whatever, but I just, not really a political person.
Okay.
And I'm not against it,
Right.
I don't, but probably not going to be a huge thrill to talk to about it. So.
Well, you'd be surprised because I've had people answer that with no, I'm not a political person. But then I'm kind of like, well, is there anything? Well, I guess what I asked is this: what do you see as the? It doesn't have to be the biggest, but one of the most crucial issues that our world or our country faces right now.
I mean, I think the issue is less what's happening and how people respond to it.
Okay. Okay.
Because I think that a lot of the things going on, even though they take on different forms, aren't too different than things that have existed through time. But I think that people are incredibly reactionary and that they're entitled and outraged and pitting themselves against each other. And I think that that's a way bigger issue than anything else that's going on. Because I think that pretty much anything there's a way to find some kind of compromise, even if compromise is the right word, to accept, give and take for everything.
Right.
But I think that right now people are much more wrapped up in their feelings.
Right.
Either way.
Do you think that like the government or the media in any way plays a part in the pitting?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of each other?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. I can't figure out the whys behind that. Like I don't really know what the end goal is. Like you take something even like kind of recent, like COVID. And how divided people became, whether it was over masking, whether it was over vaccinations, whether it was over,
Right.
And everybody's got an opinion. And I mean, I have my own thoughts and beliefs on that, but at the same time, I don't care what someone does with them. It's like if someone wants to get vaccinated, great. Someone doesn't want to get vaccinated, great.
Yeah.
You want to wear a mask? Hey, go for it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I guess the only time I started to get a little like, is when people started telling me that I had to do something or not do something. And it was just like, I don't know, but then this whole polarization seemed to happen of the country, and you're getting all these mixed messages from, because in the beginning we were all freaked out because they're telling us that this virus is out there that's just killing people every 5 seconds. And if you go outside your house, you're going to die, and all this kind of thing. And then it became like, well, no, it's pretty much just the elderly. So then, those of us with elderly parents were worried about it and, that kind of thing. And everyone else was like, whatever. And then it became like, well, I mean, I know a lot of elderly people that have gotten it and they seem to be fine. Yes, we all know some people that have passed from it, of course. But I guess over time you started to see that was like less,
Yeah.
And I don't want to take away from those people, because obviously if you have a family member that dies for any reason, I don't care what the reason is, that's to you, that's very personal.
Sure, yeah.
But when we're talking about something like this topic, we need to look at it like on a percentage basis. If there's, a small percentage of the population that's dying a certain way, do we need to go to drastic measures and say, well, no, we need to shut everything down. We need to make everybody do this and that. And, so I don't know. I mean, that's where I really started to see like that. Like that's when I started to wonder, like, who's telling the truth here, right? Because it's like you have all these conflicting things on the news, and that's where it all came to a head for me. But I don't know. But I mean, is there anything that for you that gets, I don't know. See, because I'm like you, I say, well, for most things, you're like, just live and let live, right? Yeah. It's like, can't we just get along? Can't we just,
right. You
have your view, I have my view. But then there's certain things where I'm like, I don't know if there can be a compromise there. Like, I don't know, like, I know this, I keep using the same example because it's so fresh in the news, but like the transitioning of young children, right? Like it's going on in lots of states. They have this, they're debating this, and they're fighting with the whatever and saying, oh, no parental consent. So for somebody like me who views that as child abuse and the hurting of children, it's hard to compromise on that. It's hard to say, well, yeah, you believe that's okay. Go ahead. You do that to your kid. I won't do that to my kid.
Right.
I mean, so for you, is there any issues like that? Or did you, I mean, I'm sure there is,
I mean,
are you hesitant to talk about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, I think that for that and many other things, that just the way that it's portrayed and reported is probably shaping the way that you feel about it. And not to say that it's not happening,
right,
and that it's not a debate or an issue, but I think that so many things that are happening right now, we're framing how we feel about it and what we would and wouldn't do on things that aren't happening in front of us. And I'm not to say that, it's not an issue with your family and your children, but I mean, how many people do you know that are actually dealing with this actual problem in their lives? You're hearing about other people in other states or in other cities, and it's all being framed in a certain way.
So you think it should be more like a case by case kind of thing? Or?
I think that how I feel is maybe a case by case, because I think that there's a lot of things that I can feel however I want, and you can feel however you want. But I think that when people start trying to form what should and shouldn't be done, that a lot of the times it comes from people who are only getting a chunk of what's actually happening. It's the same when like a bill passes. They're like, we're gonna do this, and it turns out that tacked onto it is all of this other fine print, and people are, why would you not want this? Well, because of all of this stuff. And I think that goes for both ways. That and
I think that should be criminalized. I think that really, I'm like, I get so tired of like, it's like if we're voting on stuff, we should know exactly what we're voting on. You know what I mean? But they put on all these words and all these that doesn't make any sense. And you're like, what in the world? And like a lot of times, I was sharing this the other day with somebody, but it's like, one year I decided, I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to look at each one of these propositions and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to make informed decisions. I sat down and I was like, I still have no idea what I'm talking about. Because you have this one sheet that says, okay, Proposition 26 says it's going to not do this, right? Or it's going to do this. And then over here, the negative of it, the opponents of it say Proposition 26 is not going to do that. I'm like, well, one of you is obviously lying, because it can't do it and not do it at the same time, right? And I think that's so frustrating for so many people. And you're right. You're probably right with what you're saying. Like, all I have to go on is what I'm seeing and hearing in the news. Like, I'm not dealing with that on a personal basis. My kids have not come to me and said, hey, I think I'm a gender opposite than what I was born as. I'm not dealing with that. But I guess I look at, and again, this is just statistics of what I'm seeing, but I look at, that so many of them after the fact regret that. So I'm not saying like I'm against trans people or I think that they should never have a surgery like that. I'm saying if you're an adult and you're in a mature place where you can make that decision rationally for yourself, go ahead. Because then even if later you're like, oh, I regret that, well, that's on you. It's like getting a tattoo that maybe years later, like, oh, I don't want that, or whatever. But at least you were an adult when you made that decision, as opposed to it's just so difficult where I don't know, because I feel like a lot of the parents are almost pushing it on their kids sometimes. I don't know. It just seems.
I think that. I think that there's at some point where it's just like there's gonna be things that we're gonna have to let happen to learn from it.
That's also true.
And I think that goes for a lot of things where I think we try so hard to play goalie to a thing happening. And it's like, well, maybe just see what happens. I mean, and I get that everybody has a different moral and ethical line maybe for what that thing is, but I think that if we keep trying to jump in front of certain things happening or trying to push a certain thing out, it's like, why don't we just see this is maybe how we're going to learn as a society what to do and not do. And so, and I think that applies to a lot of different things.
Is there anything that wouldn't apply to, though, for you? Like, because I mean, I don't know. I feel like if it's literally like messing with people's lives, I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know. That's scary.
But I think that you can look at the statistics for people what happens if they do or don't do a certain thing, but if you zoom out and look at how many people are actually partaking,
it's not very many.
And you know what? Just, so
So to you, it's more like, why is that like at the forefront of everything?
Kind of,
such
yeah.
A small,
Yeah,
such a
in a way,
small minority.
it's just like,
Right.
and I'm saying that from a place of not having enormous feelings on it.
Right.
I think that I'm probably that way with a lot of things too. I mean, I felt that way about COVID, where it's like, I have feelings both ways about it. I don't,
right.
But, there's also a part of me that's like, natural selection? I don't know. There's been things throughout the course of history that take place, and maybe it's just gonna happen.
Right. Right.
And so, I don't know.
Yeah.
And my feelings are going to change throughout time. The way I feel about things now is so different than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Right.
I know they're going to be different in the future, but
which
right
is good,
now
right? I mean, that's growth. I mean, I don't think we should necessarily always, as we learn and as we mature, we should be able to change our viewpoints, Because I've always said that about, I don't know if I probably haven't always said that, but as of recently, I tend to say that about everything I believe. I'm like, I am open to being wrong, but it's going to take more than somebody just saying, well, I think this, Ryan. Oh, you do? Okay. I guess I'll adopt it. It's like, it's going to take a little more than that, but.
I think that something I've learned over the last decade is that I've seen many, many people who I meet for one day and I'll never meet again in my life, and across all cultures and races and socioeconomic demographic, we're all the same. We all like and dislike basically the same things. We all put importance on a lot of the same things. And if you talk to somebody individually, regardless of what they think, they're pretty similar to you.
Right.
And so I try to keep that in mind for anything that's going on, that as a group you can see and hate and dislike someone, but if you just talk to one of them, you find out that they probably like the same TV show as you.
Right.
And they're,
I was saying, even on a grand scheme, it's like, we all want happiness. We all want to be loved. We all want...
And we all want our families to be okay, and we all want, the same basic things. And so, I don't know. It's everybody throughout every culture finds their mom annoying sometimes. Everybody through every culture is, excited to marry someone. Yeah,
my mom's going to listen to this, so I have to say, no, my mom never annoyed me before. What was the next one? Everybody wants to marry somebody?
Well, everybody just wants to love and be loved and wants to help each other. And so,
right.
It's the same with, your car breaks down the side of the road. Some random stranger helps you. You probably would never hang out with them.
Right.
But,
might never see him again.
Yeah. But there's all common threads throughout all of us, so.
Right.
I don't know. I think there is a period of time, and I think for most people when they're a teenager, they're in college, that they have idealistic views of how things should be, and then you get older and you're like, oh, not that easy.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I guess that's kind of what's important to me, is that when I know how I was when I was in that age group.
Sure.
And if I had complete freedom to make whatever decisions I had wanted, and I guess I kind of did, but I think when I think back on anything, if there's anything I regret in my life, it's probably things that I did during that time period. I guess regret's a strong word, because a lot of times, like you were saying, you have to go through those dumb decisions and you have to do stupid things in order to come to that point. But I also know that now that I have children, two of which are adults, it's difficult, because it's like on one hand, you're like, yes, I know they need to do that. I know that they need to learn the hard lessons. But as a parent, you're like, and knowing other parents whose kids have gone through that and not made it out, that's when it gets scary. And it's like, and you're on this like fine line to, like, how much do I intervene? How much do I let go of the leash and let them go sow their wild oats. But at the same time, if I only knew the future, if I could see who my kid's going to be on the other side of that and say, oh, okay, that was all for the good, but I don't have that ability. And I don't want to get to the other side of that and be like, oh, my kid didn't make it through that. He made one too many stupid decisions and now he's gone or something, you know, I mean, but you're right. I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be my fault.
Sure.
But it wouldn't be any easier to get through by me saying, well, it's not my fault.
Right. Yeah.
He's gone.
Sure,
it's not my fault, you know.
But I mean, I think there's a point too where it's like, I think about all the things I did in high school, the trouble I got in, the things I did that I shouldn't. And it basically got out of my system and I have no desire. There's no part of me that's like, oh, I really want to get a tiny ankle tattoo and go drinking and go, I don't know what people do, but you know, I just, you know, it's like, I feel like I got it out of my system. And I think that there's some people who grow up, and I will say that everything I did was completely, I mean, my parents had no hand in it. They were not at all condoning anything I did. But I think that there's people who grow up with a lot of bumpers along the way, and then they get to be like 25 and they just like realize all these things that they didn't do and that they can do, and they're not going to get in trouble for it. And then it's like, wow, you're kind of squandering the years that you should be an adult. Or at least attempting to get your life together. And so...
Well, that's what's fascinating, because that exactly what you just said is something I've looked into a lot, because I tend to be the bumper kind of parent, you know, for the most part. And I've looked in, and you're right, there are definitely cases like that. But it's interesting because sometimes you'll have a kid that comes from a house like that where they were very sheltered, very protected from things, not allowed to do anything. And then they turn 25 and they just let loose. Right, yeah. Oh, I got to drink everything there's to drink. I got to do every drug there is. I got to sleep with everybody on the planet, you know, whatever. But then there's kids that have the same thing and they don't. They come out really good at it. And then on the flip side, you have some families that allow their kids to sow the oats, and they kind of like you in the sense of, well, I did all that already. I have no desire to do that now. I got it all out of my system. But at the same time, there's some kids that are like, they get into that and they're like, oh, I love this. And then they're 25 and they're still doing it. And it's at a grander scale now. And now they're in jail, and now they're, you know, or whatever the case may be. So that's what always fascinates me. And you talk about like nature versus nurture, and which I fully believe in. I think that each baby that is born is a unique personality already from day one. But then I think that their parents, among other things, their parents, their friends, their family members, whatever people are in their lives, whatever circumstances happen in their life, are going to shape and mold that personality, even though it's still that unique personality, but now it's had some influences, you know, and it's always fascinating to me how you can, like, even on the news, you'll see, like, you know, this kid went on a murder spree or something, and it's like, what? And that's everybody's first question. What was his family life like? Sometimes you look at it like, great.
Sure, yeah.
This parents loved him more than any kid's ever been loved, and his family was great. He came from a great home. There was no abuse. Other times you're like, okay, this kid was severely abused. He was raped as a kid, or whatever the case may be. So what's the deciding, you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference? Like, what is it in there that makes some kids snap and some not?
Yeah.
You know, like when these mass shootings happen, it's, oh, it's video games. And I'm always like, look, you know, what was that? Call of Duty. Oh, they were trying to blame one of them on Call of Duty. And I looked up some stats, and I said, Call of Duty was the number one most popular video game in the country. Which tells you what? Almost every teenager in the country is playing Call of Duty. How many of them are shooting up high schools?
Right.
1, 2? So, I mean, if it was the video games, you think that would be...
Sure,
you see a lot more of it. Now, I'm not going to say that I think if a kid's already got a warped mind to begin with, now maybe playing games like that is probably not going to be good for him.
Sure.
But, you know, I don't know. And that's kind of stuff that fascinates me. And I don't know if we'll ever have the answer to something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of cases where there's children with undiagnosed are like actual sociopaths. And people hear like psychotic and sociopath and they think somebody who's like absolutely insane and a certain thing that comes to mind, but there's people who just like are not in touch with their emotions and their like the cause and effect of certain things. And yeah, I think that we look for answers in video games.
Right.
I mean, in the 90s, Marilyn Manson,
right.
things like that. And you know,
right.
usually not the issue, but you know, people try to look for a thing to make sense of.
Well, and they
something.
do, right? Like you bring up the music aspect too. There was, I want to say it was in Napomo.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Some girl
Elise
was
Taylor.
killed or something. Yeah. And then they said it was it Slayer or was it, I don't remember.
Right. That the lyrics of a song
something.
influenced
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they even said that, but at the same time, everybody's like, oh, you gotta refine this band or make this band stop being a band. They're not allowed to release music anymore. It's like, it's not the band's fault. I mean, there's something more going on there because again, how many people have listened to that song?
Right. Yeah.
And how many of them killed some girl out in the woods? You know,
Absolutely.
It's just yeah. But it's just weird. I don't know. But then you watch some of these like true crime or you watch some of these serial killers and you see them in the interviews and stuff, and they're just like so seemingly unremorseful.
Yeah.
And I guess
think it's something psychologically wrong with them. And I think we look at so many people like that and go, oh, what a monster, like what a, you know, unglued person that is. And I think that there's people who genuinely just don't have that wiring.
Right.
And I think that it's possible to feel absolute horror and disgust for something that someone does and to also feel bad for them.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of people that do bad things, and I don't think that they just woke up and decided to do it. I think it's their environment and, like you said, like how they're raised and everything around them, and they got to that point somehow.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of people like that it's like, even if they don't seem to feel remorse, I feel bad that that's what their life turned into.
Right.
Could have been anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to myself, like, if I was ever in the position where I had to kill somebody, I shouldn't say had to, but I use this situation, let's say someone breaks into my house and he's going to attack my children, and and I'm behind him and he can't see me, and I happen to have a gun.
Right, yeah.
I'm probably going to shoot the guy.
Sure.
But I'm probably going to be jacked up for the rest of my life over that. Because even though in my mind I could think to myself, that was a total justified killing.
Yeah.
Because it was either that guy or my kids. Right. And he came into my house. I didn't go around looking for him.
Right, absolutely.
So it's self-defense.
Yeah.
But just that knowledge of knowing that I took someone's life.
Sure.
That'd be hard for me. Even if I was like a death row guy, where I was like, it was my job to turn on the electric chair. It was my job to administer the lethal injection. Even if it was like a serial killer or it was like a serial rapist or child molester or something, I'm like, I don't know if I personally feel comfortable taking this man's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just...
Do you believe in the death penalty?
Oh, boy. I do. Right? I do, but it's hard. It's hard. Okay, so here's my thoughts on that. I almost don't. But my reasons for my reasons for not are not the normal reasons. Like people say, I don't believe in the death penalty because I think it's cruel. I don't think we should take the life of anybody. I totally understand that argument, and I think it does have a lot of merit. But for me, I think about myself, and I think, would I rather die or spend the rest of my life in prison? I would rather die. So to me, I almost feel like...
You feel like you're doing them a favor?
Right. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, and I'm even more harsh to where I'm like, I get really angry when I think about like some of these stories of men that take little kids and rape and kill them and stuff. I'm like, that is a form of evil so deep. I cannot even fathom that. I cannot even fathom it. And I think to myself, that guy should be tortured for the rest of his life. That's what I think to myself. And then I feel like, oh my gosh, that's not right, Ryan. You shouldn't have those thoughts and feelings. But I guess I just get so angry because I think to myself, if that was my kid, I mean, I think about my kids who I love dearly, and I think anyway, that's really, really difficult. But I almost feel like it's out. Like it's an out, you know? But then when you start...
want them to have that out though?
I don't know. I mean...
Do you feel like that there's a chance for some kind of redemption in their life if they stay alive?
There is. But see, and that's when I was just going to say, like, when I bring a spiritual issue into it, when we talk about an afterlife, we talk about a heaven or a hell, which, as you know, I believe in. So it's like, if he's on his way to hell, then the death penalty is going to send him somewhere worse than he's ever even imagined on earth anyway. But if you take the spirituality aspect out of it, and let's say there is no God, there is no hell, there's no heaven, and it's just like nothingness. Like you die and then there's just nothing. You just cease to exist. It's just nihil. You have no soul. You're just gone. You're like, everything ends at that point. Then if that's true, then I think like the death penalty is almost like merciful as opposed to life in prison.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's kind of an archaic concept. I think that also when you look at it realistically, that it's not like a medieval execution where like you're sentenced and then like tomorrow in the town square we're gonna hang you. It's years.
Right.
Because there's the legal process of appeals and trying to get you off of there and all these different things. And so, and it goes wrong most of the time now. And that is awful. And again, just like, why are we even doing this? But yeah, I think that there's a part of me that I understand that if you are a victim, that I absolutely believe that there are people who think that the justification is for someone else's life to be taken. But yeah, I think that there's why not let them maybe have the opportunity to become a different person.
Right.
And again, I think that there's behind everyone who does something horrible is horrible things that have happened to them in some way.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that this huge dramatic, their house burned down and they, you know, it can, small things shape us. And I think that, there are a lot of people that can learn to maybe come to peace with somebody terrible still being alive, and that maybe they don't have to lose their life in the process also. I haven't been in that position where I've lost someone and feel vindication and justice and all of these things are necessary for someone, you know, in my life. But
well, that's something that Chris and I have talked about often, is that the when you see the courtrooms where the parents will publicly forgive the man that raped and killed their little 4-year-old daughter or something, you know, and it's like, it's just, it's crazy. Because everything in me anyway is going, that's the right thing to do. What that man is doing right there is right. But then I put myself in his shoes and I think, would I be able to do that? I don't know. I don't know if I mean, just being honest, it's like, that's one of those situations where like, I know what's right. But would I respond that way? Would I act rightly? But I mean, but you're absolutely right. And there's always, the longer that a person lives, the longer they have at a chance at redemption. And you talk about, like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Who it's said and believed that he became a Christian before he died. And, I mean, and I hear stories like that, and I'm very skeptical, right? Obviously, that one I looked into quite a bit, and not that I can know for sure, but it sounds like it was a genuine repentance, a genuine turning to the Lord. But I don't know for sure. What I do know is there's a whole lot of Christians that were really mad about that, and they said, things like, if God's going to let that man into heaven, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to believe in that God. I cannot believe in a God like that. And I think to myself, yes, the crimes he committed were horrific, but you've committed things too. I mean, maybe you didn't murder and eat people, but you still have committed, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, and if you're a Christian, you're saying you're forgiven too. Mm-hmm. So, but now you're saying that this man committed something that's beyond the level of forgiveness from God. Yeah. It's like, well, who are you to play God? You know? So, I mean, yeah, it's difficult, but when you say redemption, and I guess we'll go into this now. When you say redemption, well, I guess I'll just ask flat out. I have no idea what your beliefs are in this area, so this is going to be kind of fun too. So why don't you just tell me about your spiritual beliefs, if any, or lack maybe none. I don't know. I don't really know where you are. And don't be afraid, by like I told you.
I think that I don't believe in a literal God. I don't believe in a heaven and hell, but I believe that there is some sort of consciousness to the world and to the universe, and I think that there are unexplainable things in the way that things work out, but I do not consider myself a religious person. I appreciate a lot of aspects of religion culturally and the things that you can take away from each religion. Again, see it every weekend. But
what do you mean you see it every weekend?
I see people's religious beliefs and culturally,
gotcha.
play out. Yeah. And so when I say redemption, I mean, I guess if you're gonna like character redemption, like as a human being, that I believe that obviously you can't undo things that you've done necessarily, but I think that maybe out of every awful thing you can pull something good out of it.
Okay. So it's more of like a redemption on earth.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. And it's brought up Jeffrey Dahmer, that he's someone that I also feel sympathy for, because if you listen to him recounting the things he did, you hear regret and a lot of someone who's not sure why they are the way that they are. Mm-hmm. Someone who's not getting glee out of the things that they're doing, but like made a conscious effort to try to stop themselves at certain points and didn't have the ability and tools within them to do that.
Right.
And yeah, did absolutely nightmarish things, but you listen to it, it's like, oh, that's a really sad human being.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, and I think that if you're going to look at the rules of getting into heaven or not, it'd be kind of messed up to...
Right.
Not
right.
you.
Well, I mean, especially from the Christian perspective of that, which is forgiveness is forgiveness, right? There's no sin you can commit that would be unforgivable as far as the Lord's concerned, but it would have to be a genuine repentance, and that's why I said I'm skeptical when I hear those things, because I know plenty of people in my own personal life that, you know, not that they've committed that horrific of crimes, but I mean, they'll turn their life around supposedly and follow the Lord or whatever, only 2 months later just completely go the other direction, or you know, bounce back and forth. And it's like, and it's not my place anyway to sit there and try to look into someone's soul. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. That's between them and the Lord, obviously, but just on the surface, some of the things that you can see are like, well, I don't know if that was true actual forgiveness, like or not forgiveness, repentance, seeking forgiveness. But when you talk about a consciousness, is it a consciousness that's, how can I word this? Is it outside of us at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a completely abstract, you know, I feel like that there's things that, you know, and it's cliche, but like, you know, everything happens for a reason, that kind of thing. I believe things like that to a certain extent. I think there's things that just have fallen into place in such a way that it's like, wow, that's pretty incredible. And I didn't grow up religious, and in high school found out that was a thing, because so many people that I grew up with were Christian Catholic. And once I found out that not having a religion was a thing, I think I felt some kind of relief.
Oh, okay.
Because I felt like I'm just not in on it. And so had friends that were atheists, took it very seriously, read books about it. And so I identified with that in the sense that it's like, yeah, I also, to, you know, maybe not the extreme that they did, but it's like, yeah, I don't subscribe to a religion, and don't think that there's a God and all of those things. But then over time have realized, I think that was in a way just a way to put a label on the way that I felt.
Right.
So I don't feel that strongly about it right now.
About the consciousness thing, or the
about their, you know, no God, no religion, no anything like that, you know, because I think that there's people who look at it and they scoff at it as that, you know, that's absurd. And I think that there are religious traditions that I look at and as an outsider, I'm like, that's bananas. And I know that I only feel that way because it's so outside of anything that I grew up with or was around. And so, you know, when you're in your 20s and you watch a Catholic mass for the first time, you're just like, you guys are spending 3 hours doing stuff that I never would. Like, it's so outside of anything that, you know, I was exposed to. And so, but, yeah, I think that I'm not against religion in any way.
Would you consider yourself more of like an agnostic?
I guess so. I don't even know if I want to say that. I just, I'm open to the possibility that my mind might be changed.
Okay.
And I don't think anything anybody says to me will change it, but in the course of my life, maybe. Not holding my breath for it, but I think that at this juncture, yeah, it doesn't. I think that in the way that I was raised and the way that my life has played out, yeah, just doesn't really. So
when you say that you don't believe in God, but you believe in consciousness, so what would be the difference between the, like, why wouldn't you call the consciousness God?
Well, I think that when I think of God, I think of a being, some form of, I don't want to say a person, but, you know, figuratively, always takes the form of a person.
Old man with a long white beard and staff.
I mean, anybody, you know, like however you want to think of God as somebody who is listening to us and making things happen or guiding events or people or what have you. And to me, I think more of you know, like in Pocahontas when the leaves swirl around. I don't know, something like there's things that happen that I think are more than coincidence. I do not think that there is a literal God. I don't think that I think that when people and cultures have religion, I usually look at it as a way for us to cope and to make understanding of things around us, and it's absolutely a huge cornerstone of just humanity. But I think that it's all about people, and I don't think that there's a being higher than that. So this, if you want to call it a being, I think that sometimes things happen beyond explanation.
Right.
And I wouldn't say really anything more than that.
But would you see some form of intelligence behind that?
Nah.
Okay.
I think that maybe
because it sounds like there's a purpose. Like if you say things happen for a reason, what's the reason and who's making the reason? Like who's reason?
Yeah, I think that maybe just I don't think that there's any plan behind it. I think that there's just sometimes a certain way that, like, the way two people meet, or the way that somebody gets an idea for something, that it's just a little too good to be a coincidence.
Okay.
But I don't think that I don't think beyond that.
Okay.
And I'm not, like, talking to you. This is the most I've ever molded over for an extended period of time. I think that, do you know who Elizabeth Gilbert is?
Yes.
Okay.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah. She has this book that Chris bought me that I ended up loving, and it was talking about basically creative inspiration and big magic. And she told this story about how she had this idea to write a book, and it was a very specific idea about this colony of people. I want to say it was in South America. And she was going to write this whole thing, and she had researched it, and it was this, I want to say, like 50 people in the middle of the rainforest. And she ended up abandoning it. She just, like, the idea passed, and she's like, it didn't line up time-wise. She kind of lost steam, and she ended up meeting a woman later who was working on the exact same thing.
Crazy.
And she was saying that it was like her idea lost patience with her and realized this isn't the outlet where this is going to get told, and went to someone else, and they ended up getting the big magic idea of this thing. Do I think that's God? No. But I think that's pretty incredible.
Right. But I guess that's what I'm wondering. Because we talk about stuff like that, and I guess there's only two possibilities on just a general level. Either that was just totally random, unguided, just two things happened to bump into each other, totally willy-nilly, or something with some kind of intelligence did it.
Sure.
Right? So you're leaning more towards the just random
I guess so.
thing. Okay.
I mean, if I had to pick one of those.
You have to pick. No.
Do you believe in aliens?
I don't know. I'm agnostic on that.
Okay, you know what? We'll say I won't even frame it as aliens. Do you believe that there's life other than human beings in this universe?
I am, and this is, okay, so this is where you're going to probably be like, well, wait a minute, don't you believe in God? So I'm a realist.
Okay.
And I'm evidence-based.
Okay.
So with aliens, I'm kind of on the fence, only because, like, I watch a movie. I like the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, right?
Yeah.
And there's that whole scene where as a little girl, she's talking to her dad. Yeah. Dad, do you think there's anything out there? And he says, well, hon, if there's not, it sure is an awful waste of space, right? Like, sure. So I look out there and I think, oh my gosh, like especially when you look at those videos they show where it shows the Earth, or it'll show like your house, and then it'll show your city, and then it'll show your state, and then it'll show your country, and then it'll show the Earth, and it just keeps zooming out to where some of the biggest heavenly, whatever you call them, planets, whatever they are, that have been discovered are so massive that our Earth looks like a tiny little speck. Yeah. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, like it's almost kind of arrogant to think, well, this is the only place that there's anything intelligent happening just in this little tiny blip. So I do think that. But then also the other side of it is, I'm like, okay, but if there's these intelligent beings out there that are flying around in saucers or whatever, little tic-tac shaped air, all the different sightings they have and all this kind of stuff, then you would think by now we would have something more definitive than, some guy out in the woods claims he was abducted and claims that he, and through hypnosis and all. I guess I feel like there'd be something a little more definitive. So I'm like, I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying no, there's not. But I guess I haven't personally seen any evidence. I mean, not just personally like seeing it, but I mean, even through what they've gathered as far as evidence. None of that is so convincing to me that I'm like, okay, yes, there's gotta be. I think the evidence for God is more compelling than the evidence that they found for aliens. So I'm agnostic in that, in that
well,
sense.
I mean, do you think that humans are God's only children? Do you think that God's managing like 80 different planets with different beings on them?
So I guess the only...
Keeping us separate?
The only solid kind of thing I could say is when I read the Bible. Mm-hmm. And again, this is only valid if the Bible's true. If it's not, who cares? But if it is true, then it describes it as, God's designed everything, the whole universe, and he exists outside of it, outside of time, outside of all of that. And all we know from that is the human race. All we know from that is that he says he's created the heavens, he's created all this so that we would look at it and praise God and say, look at the amazingness of this creation. It doesn't say anything in there about other life forms, although some people try to make a part in Genesis sound like there's aliens, the whole Nephilim and all, but that's another story. So for you to ask me if I think that, no, I guess not, but it's possible. Yeah. I mean, he's God. I wouldn't put it past him if he created, maybe there's another planet that's just like Earth, way bazillions of light years out there, where there's more humans just like us, or maybe not. Maybe there's another species of people. Yeah. Maybe these little gray men that are running around with big eyes and no noses are a real deal. Who knows? I don't really have any way to solidly answer that question other than, well, this is my opinion. Yeah. I just want to know what you think. Right. Because,
I'll say that I believe in life outside of us in the universe. I feel much strongly about than anything religious or spiritual. Okay. Because I agree with what you just said. That's been my mindset for most of my life, is how self-centered to think that we could be the only things out there. Right. And I think that it's so sculpted to us that it's just like we're looking for water on Mars. Right. Like, no, like what? Think bigger. Like, think something that doesn't need water, and things that could just be microscopic. Yes. Like, I think that it's so like other civilizations and technology and all of this. It's like it could be something so beyond anything we've ever seen. Right. Just existing out there. Right. And
could even be invisible to our eyes. It could be that our human eyes are only able to see things on Earth. Yeah. And it could be that these beings are so advanced that maybe they're here right now. Right. Maybe there's one sitting in the chair over there and we just can't see him. Yeah. And he's listening. He's screaming, "Hey, I'm over here, guys. I am real." And we're like, I don't see him. I don't hear him. Right. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. I guess when we think like that, anything's possible, really. So I guess my question for you then would be, like, when you say that you think that's more likely, like, what are you basing that on? Like, I'm sure you've looked into it more than I have.
A lifetime of growing up with Star Trek probably planted. And I truly mean this, that growing up as a kid watching that, I think gave me a way more open mind than if I hadn't. Because it gives you an idea of, just like on Earth, we have different cultures and races and different people, and same thing, but on a different scale. Just the possibility of just not what could exist outside of us, but what our entire, like, our interaction with other people, that people working together and people not, having conflicts with each other and, on a larger scale. And, but yeah, I think just as soon as I learned that the universe is infinitely expanding, it's just like, I joke with people, it's like, if you ever say you're bored, just think about black hole for a while. It's just like, think about how massive and unknown so many things are. And one, it'll make your problems look minuscule. But yeah, I don't know. It's
well, I would just wonder too, like, because, like, so we have a there's a possibility of something, right? So if you break it down to even things on Earth, and you say, well, if someone came to you and let's say you had a I don't know, you had some medical issue.
Okay.
And they said, well, there's this pill.
Uh-huh.
And there's a possibility that it could heal your illness.
Sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. Most likely, if you're like most people, you wouldn't just say, oh, okay, let me take it.
Right.
You'd probably be like, well, let me look into this. Show me your evidence that this might do it. And you're probably not going to take it unless you come to a place where you're like, okay, here's the pros, here's the cons. Most likely, this is going to heal me.
Sure.
Even if maybe there's a 1% chance it would kill you. Let's say you had a terminal disease. And it's like, okay, well, there's 99% chance it's going to heal you. 1% it's going to kill you. You're probably going to take it because you're like, well, right. I got a terminal disease anyway.
Yeah.
I might as well go with the best odds. But then when we look at things like outside of here, like whether it's aliens, whether it's God, we say, well, is there a possibility there's life on other planets? Sure. But for me, I have a hard time jumping to so I think there is.
Yeah.
Until I see some kind of like.
But what's the risk?
There is no risk.
Yeah.
There is no risk. But I guess it's just the way my mind works to where like I said, I'm very.
I mean, you just believe it till you're proven wrong.
I guess. But I mean, and this is, by the way, this is why I have struggles even in Christian circles, because I'll be in part of a Bible study and, the guy they'll all go back and forth. Well, what do we think this means? What do we think this verse means? Blah, blah, blah. And they'll all come to this conclusion. And I'm the guy that kind of raises my hand and go, but it doesn't say that. Like, your theory is fine. I mean, maybe that's what it means. But I personally have a hard time saying, yep, that's definitely what it means.
Sure.
Unless it definitely says that, you know? And then they're like, oh, come on, Ryan, you got to do it. I mean, you can't be that hard-headed. And I said, well, I mean, I kind of am. I've always been, even before I was believing in God, or before I was a Christian, I said, I've always been that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably used to drive my parents crazy all the time. We'll do this, but why? I was always that kid, but why? I don't understand why. And that's why I was hated that because I said so. That's the worst. And then I always said, I will never say that to my children. And then I say it to my children all the time now because you realize the questions just keep coming. You're like, just because I said so.
So do you take the whole Bible literally? Do you read the words and go, that is what happened? I take the Bible literally where it's literal. And I take it allegorical where it's allegorical. Are you making that decision? What do you mean? Well, on what's literal and what's not. Well, I mean, like, for example, if Jesus says, here's a parable. Okay. And he tells a story of 10 virgins who didn't have their candles lit. So then therefore they missed whatever, right? That's very obviously. So if it's set up. Correct. Beforehand. Correct. As to this. Okay. But then if we get in and this is where most people go, it's like Genesis. Say, Ryan, do you really believe that Adam and Eve were the first two people and that they really ate a fruit that a talking snake gave them? And because of that eating of that fruit, all of humanity was swept into sin and death and destruction and everything came on the earth. And there's a lot of Christians that would say, no, that's all allegorical. Mm-hmm. They would say that the end result is the same, but they'd say, no, it wasn't really a talking snake. It was just some guy that they were saying he was a snake. Yeah. That I do take that literal. That the actual talking snake. Yeah. Okay. The talking snake. Because I believe it was Satan as in the form of a serpent. Weird. Don't get me wrong. Weird. But I mean, that's why for me, I love studying the Old Testament. I think there's some neat stuff in there, but when it comes to my understanding of Christianity and Jesus and my relationship with God, it's mostly in the New Testament, which I think is much more exact, especially because it's originally in Greek, which Greek is a very exact language. You can't really get around and say, well, maybe it means it. No, this is what it says. To where Hebrew is a little more general. Dale would probably disagree with me on that. And we've talked about it. But so anyway, so a lot of stuff that I read in there, it's like, no, this is what it says. Right. Like, I can decide not to believe it. Sure. Of course. I can say, well, maybe whoever wrote that, whether it was Matthew or Peter or whoever, maybe they drank too much that day. Maybe they wrote something stupid. Maybe they... Yeah. That's one way to look at it. Do you find yourself cherry picking at all? Personally? Not really. Okay. I know a lot of people that do. Sure, why not? Right. Well, here's why. The reason that I have at least for myself, the reason I have an issue with that is because then it's kind of us deciding what we think is true and what's not true based on what exactly? Yeah. Like my own personal, well, I don't like that, so therefore that can't be true, right? Sure. It'd be like my kids telling me,
I don't like that rule, Dad. I don't like that you say I have to do the dishes before I can watch TV. Therefore, it's not true.
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to do it. It's like, no, you're going to do it. It is true. Trust me.
But do you think that there are people who are doing that based on their interpretation, not versus I like or dislike this thing, but based on just that their perception of?
Yes, I do, and I think that's what's difficult. I think for me, when I study the scripture, I think I have to try my best to remove myself completely from any. I don't even necessarily like the word interpretation, because I know you have to in some cases, but like I said, if I read something that says, you know, the water is wet, and I can tell from, let's say I look in the Greek and it's literally the water is wet and there's no other way, and someone comes along and they say, whoa, my interpretation of that is that the water's dry. I mean, you're entitled to your interpretation, of course. You can believe whatever you want to, but that's not what the text says.
Sure.
Like, you would have to say, I believe this, but it doesn't go along with Scripture. There's definitely parts of the Bible where I'm like, hey, Ryan, do you understand that? No. But I'm that guy too, where I'll just say, I'd rather just move on and say, okay, that's a part that I don't understand.
Right, yeah.
Than trying to make it fit somehow. Sure. You know what I mean? But anyway.
So, I mean, how do you feel about other religions? Do you believe that there's, when you look at other religions, I know you wouldn't be disrespectful to them, but do you think you're wrong?
Well, you're right. As far as me not being disrespectful, I've had many conversations with people of all different walks of faith, and I love it. I think it's great. It's a blast.
What are you thinking quietly in your mind?
Am I thinking that they're wrong?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course. I mean, but only because Jesus said. So, in other words, either they're wrong or Jesus is wrong. Because if he truly made this claim, I am the way, the truth, and the life, nobody comes to the Father but through me. And then someone comes along and says, well, I get to God through Buddha, or I get to God through Krishna, or whatever the case may be, that would be in direct contradiction to what Jesus said. So in other words, they can't both be true. It could be that I'm wrong. Maybe there was no guy named Jesus. Maybe the Bible's all phony, and maybe the whatever other book is right. Maybe the Quran is correct.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're basing your future for the rest of eternity on it, I mean, you feel pretty right about it, don't you?
Well, I think it's an important. To me, it's the most important question anybody can ever ask themselves. Is there a God? And if so, what does he want from me? What's my role in this whole thing? To me, there's no more important question. Because if there isn't a God, it doesn't matter. Who cares? Who cares what religion I am? Who cares what religion you are? Who cares if any of us are religious at all?
Sure.
Because we're all just going to die, and we're just going to be worm food, and we'll have that, 90 years if we're lucky on Earth. That will be our entire summation of our existence.
Right.
Sure. But if there is a God, then it's probably important that we know what he wants, what his will is for us, what his desire is for us. And of course, you can go many different directions then once we come to the point, is there a God, is there not? Let's say we decide, yes, there is. Well, now there's a million different possibilities there. Is he a personable God? Did he just set everything in motion and he just backed off and he's off somewhere in some other planet and he doesn't care about us at all? Or is he personable? Does he love us? Does he want the best for us? Is he sadistic? Is he some evil guy who's up there going, all right, I'm going to push buttons and make these people's lives? You see what I'm saying? At that point, the possibilities are endless when it comes to who is God. Yeah. So.
Would you be...
I love this. You're asking good questions. This is awesome. No one's ever questioned me like this.
Really?
I mean, definitely not on this podcast.
I mean, here's the thing is you have such strong beliefs. And so with someone like that, it's hard not to just... is there a world where you think that maybe Buddha is God in another form. That everything that people, whenever a religion finds someone like that to worship, that it's God in another form, that it all adds up to being the same being.
Right.
And that maybe it's not someone else, that it's all kind of the same thing in the end.
Well, for me, it would hinge on Scripture. So if I've done the research, which I have, and I've looked into that. I've looked into Buddhism. I've looked into, I've even looked into the sects of Christianity. I've looked at Catholicism. I've looked at Mormonism, if we want to count that, Jehovah's Witness. What I've come to, is there a chance I'm wrong? Of course, there's always a chance I'm wrong. But when I look at everything that I've seen and the way that the scriptures were put together, and it's very, the evidence for me that I've seen is very strong to it being a book that was not invented by men. Men were used to write it.
Okay.
I'm not going to deny that. I don't think that, God wrote it and threw it down on the earth. I mean, obviously we have these different human authors that wrote it, but I think there's a lot of evidence to support the fact that these men were inspired by God. They were used by God to write this book. So everything that I would say after all that research is done, because like I told you, I'm a skeptic from day one. I'm a skeptic. When I first even became a Christian, I didn't know if I believed the Bible, the whole thing. I was like, I don't know about this. How do I know what these guys were saying? But as I spent a couple years looking at that, that's the conclusion I come to. So once I've come to that conclusion, every answer that I have to a question like what you just asked me is going to go back to that, because to me, that's the solid thing that I can trust. I can't trust myself. I can't trust another person. So if I believe it to be true, and I know that it teaches that Jesus is the only way of salvation, and that he doesn't appear in not that he doesn't appear in other forms, because he does, but when you look at the teachings of Buddha, and one thing people always say was like, well, look, just focus on the similarities. All those religions have love involved. All the religions have, there's always similarities. Sure. But it's also important to focus on the differences, right? And there are some vastly different teachings within Buddhism and within Hinduism, and even within Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses and Catholicism. Yeah. The Protestant teachings and the Catholic teachings are very, very different in some aspects. Do you know what I'm saying? Sure. So although a lot of the core tenets are the same, because the more that you are within the Abrahamic religions, like you're going to find a lot more in common with Christianity and Islam than you are with Christianity and Hinduism, with a belief in reincarnation and a belief in, many gods, a polytheistic kind of thing. And so that's sermon number 7. So that in mind, the only way that I think that I could be wrong is if I'm wrong about the scriptures being right.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Really hinging a lot on that, then.
I am. Yes.
How, just say a world where you're able to react. Would you be, how upset would you be if you found out that things didn't pan out? Right. You die and that's it.
Like after I died, how upset would I be?
Say you die and there's just a guy that's like, okay, move along, and then it's just your consciousness is over. Like you have a 3-minute period to just soak up that things aren't going the way that you thought they would.
Right.
Would you be mad at God? Would you be mad at yourself?
That's an interesting question, because I guess it depends on what it is. Like if I'm there and what is one of the other religions right? Is it like no? Okay, it's just nothing. It's just nothing. Yeah. So I have 3 minutes to realize that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you have enough time to react for my own.
Gotcha.
Hypothetical here.
But what you're saying is there is no afterlife. Right, yeah.
It's just like. Meh.
Well, no, because I couldn't be mad at God at that point, because then I would probably come to the conclusion that maybe there isn't one.
But you feel like there is, right?
Well, but I don't trust feelings. Like at all. I don't
trust feelings.
I don't, because they prove me. They've let me down before. I only trust things that don't let me down. It's a conversation I've had before, like with Dale, because he's like, "Oh, I trust myself completely." I was like, "I don't trust myself at all."
This can be a future fight for you later tonight. But if your wife told you that she didn't believe in God anymore, if she came to you and
Yes.
Like not in an impulsive way, but truly felt like this is not what I believe, do you still feel like you could have the relationship with her that you do as a wife and as your partner, or do you feel like that would sever your relationship in a way?
Neither. I don't think it would sever it. I wouldn't file for divorce. I wouldn't do anything crazy like that. But I think as a couple, as a married couple with children, as we go to make family decisions, it would become more difficult.
Sure.
Because if it was like, I don't think the kids should be allowed to do X, Y, Z, because...
Pretend kids aren't in the equation.
Okay, no kids.
Pretend kids are they're grown, they're out of the picture.
Okay.
It's just the two of you. It's you and her. How much of your relationship with her is based in a... how much is God part of your relationship with her?
Well, that's interesting, too, because that's changed over the years, as it is, right? Even though we would both say that we believe and that we both profess to be Christians, I think that a lot of times we're on totally different pages with how much maybe...
I see so many people get married, and it's a marriage of them and God.
Right. Which I do see it as that. So I do. I think they say that the cliche thing, right? There's three people at a wedding.
Right, yeah.
There's the husband, the wife, and God. And that it's true, right? Especially if we're getting married under the pretenses of what Christian marriage is, and Christian, of course. Sure. To us, we are making a vow before God to be committed to each other forever.
Right.
Right. As far as Christianity is concerned, there's only one valid reason for divorce, and that's infidelity. But even then, it's not commanded. It's not like, well, if there's somebody cheating on somebody, you have to get divorced. Right. So it's even encouraged to try to work it out at that point, which would be very difficult, of course. But so
if she cheated on you with atheism.
So if she came to me tonight and she said, "Hon, I need to talk to you about something serious." She says, I've come to the point in my life where I think Christianity thing is a sham. I think that God is not real. Right. My response to that would obviously be to ask some questions.
Sure. Because I think your instinct would be to try to get her back on the wagon, right?
Maybe, but I also think that that's something only God can do.
Okay.
I don't think I have the power to make anybody a Christian. I think that's it's like I said earlier, that's between them and God. Yeah. So I think I would start probing and asking questions about, well, what brought you to this point? Like, what is it specifically? Because I've gone through my own struggles to where I'm not that I've ever been like, is there a God or anything, but I've questioned my own relationship with him and said, dude, I go through dark times or I go through whatever. It's like, is this all like made up? Is this like, so I would probably counsel and walk her through that. But if after all that, she was still like, no, we would still be together. Would it affect our marriage? I think so. It would affect it less if there's no kids involved.
Sure.
But I think biblically my job at that point would be to love her and I don't think my job would change, I guess is what I should say. When I read what a husband is to be to his wife, I would still be all those things. Sure. I would pray that the Lord would open her heart and her mind to see the truth. Doesn't mean he will. Right. So yeah, that's my answer to that one.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm serious. This is like really cool. I'm really digging this. So to turn it back, to put you back on the hot seat. Okay, I was writing some notes here. So we already talked about redemption. Talked about that one.
Redemption.
So what would it for you to see? Hold on, let me go here first. When you look at the intelligent design theory over the random, spontaneous, arisal of life. Which one of those do you see? Because we're taking God out, we're taking religion out of all forms. We're talking just intelligent design.
I mean, what does that mean? I mean, I guess I would err on the side of like randomness.
Okay.
I know that the argument to that is like, think about all the parts of an eyeball, you know?
Right.
So, but.
Oh, you've heard that one before, huh?
Yeah, you know.
Well, I guess.
Like, I think here's the thing is that you ask me something like that. I'm like, where's, like, let's go forward 5 minutes and where's this conversation going to go?
Right. Right.
But, you know, I think there's a lot to appreciate, but I think that if you want to go into intelligent design, what would your option other than God be?
Well, it could be anything with intelligent design. It could be aliens. It could be a force. It could be. Yeah. But the whole point is that the whole idea is this, and you know, you can pick anything in the room, right? And it's kind of gets kind of to your eyeball point, but it's even on a more generic scale. Where you look at this book, or you look at your phone, right? And intelligent design would say somebody made that phone.
Sure.
Random would say that phone just appeared there.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like intelligent. In other words, when you look at humanity, you look at even the animal kingdom, you look at plants, you look at the idea that that humans has happened to live on this earth, and those same humans happen to need water for survival, and it just happens to be here. They happen and breathe a certain kind of air that it just happens to be here. They need certain nutrients and vitamins. Oh, that just happens to be in all the plants and fruits and everything that we So that implies that something with some form of intelligence purposely did that. Like it implies intent. Okay. And intent can't exist without something intelligent, right? If it's just some just floating around there, just blob of nothingness, it's not going to think to it's not going to think at all, let alone think to itself, I'm going to create that.
Sure.
Or I'm going to make this crash into this, which is going to combine and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's some line there where, I mean, I think that I feel like anything I say turns into like the science argument, and that's like
You're not big on science?
No, I love learning things, and I love many scientific things, but I think it's become like an argument.
Right.
It's like, oh, come on. I think there's some middle. I mean, I think that the humans and the water and the plants and the water, that all happens. Like, you think of like how an ecosystem develops and that kind of thing. And then I guess, to your point, you think about how did the earth form? I don't know. I mean, sure. I guess you could say that I think that over a very, very, very long time, I don't think that just planet and then things happen on it. I think that over eons that things developed and evolved to change to fit what was happening. But I don't know. So
the answer to that, though, would be if someone was going to debate you on this, not that I am, but if someone was going to, they would say, so if you take like, I don't know, Little Women, the book, Little Women. Yep. Okay. Huge volume. Yep. Bunch of words that all mean something. They all convey, each word means something on its own, then it means something in the sentence, a paragraph, and then it means something in a whole story that's telling the story of these girls that are growing up to be women, right? It's a message there. Yeah. So I don't think there's any amount of time that would result in that on its own. Like, it could be bazillions of years. It's not going to, okay, now we got a sense. After 1 million years,
about the monkeys and the typewriter thing?
Exactly. Okay, yeah. Exactly. And it's a similar thing. Okay, yep. But with monkeys, it's almost a possibility. Yeah. Because, I mean, they could randomly they might spell the word nugget. Right. Or something. But they don't know they're spelling the word nugget. It's totally random. And is that possible? Yes. Is it plausible? Not really. Yeah. But it is a possibility, right? And so when I look at like the evidence, people say, Ryan, there's no evidence for God. Well, I'm not saying that I can prove to you definitively that there is a God. I'm not trying to claim that at all. But I guess when I look at the evidence that I see from things like that, from creation or any of that, then it seems to be more in favor of the idea of something intelligent creating everything, as opposed to something coming from nothing, no guided process of any shape or form. I understand the evolutionary process says, well, over billions of years, this animal could become this animal. Okay, sure, but you still got to go back to, but who created the original animal? Yeah, and where did that come from? You know what I'm saying?
Is the goal for everyone to believe and serve God?
Should it be? Like, is that
your ideal? Do you think it's God's ideal?
Yes.
Do you think that there's purpose to people who don't? Do you think there's purpose to other religions that aren't that? Or do you, is your ideal, you think, that everybody is on the same page with the same God? Is that Well,
that's a few questions. I think that, yes, it's God's ideal. I think he created us so that we would know him.
Okay.
But I also think he created us to have free will.
Okay.
And I do believe in the devil.
Okay.
I think he is an actual being, and I think that his purpose is to deceive people. And when I look at some of these other religions, I think that's what that is. And I think people have bought into that. I'm not saying they're worshiping Satan over there, but I think that they've been deceived away from the truth. And I think he also uses science. The devil uses science for that. I love science. A lot of times people argue, say, well, Christians don't believe in science. I totally believe in science. But I think that he's twisted science, and he's convinced people that certain things are proven facts that are not proven facts. Okay. Evolution being one of them.
Yeah.
I've even had biology teachers at Hancock tell me, oh, well, it's proven. It is? What's the I mentioned something about she was talking about Lucy.
Oh,
remember Lucy? And the night before class, there was a thing on the TV. It was some program or something, and it wasn't religious at all. It was a total secular program talking about how they had seen now that Lucy was not a missing link, that she was just a form of ape that they didn't know of before, right?
Okay.
And they were saying this. So I brought that up as, hey, just last night I saw that this actually was, and she didn't even respond to that. She just said, there are no missing links in the fossil record. I said, wow, I've never even had a biologist tell me that before. I said, really? Can you direct me? Can you show me some of the transitional forms in the, But there's a blindness there. But there is with some religious people too, where they're like, nope, I don't want to hear any evidence that goes against my God. Stay away from me. Did you ever see Bill Maher's movie?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so there's a scene where he visits these guys at a truck stop, and he goes in there, and there's 4 guys in there. They have some kind of Bible study in their little truck stop trailer or whatever. And he's like, after about 10 minutes, they start to realize, okay, this guy he's against Christianity. He's trying to find reasons that it's not right. And one of the guys, he stands up and he goes, I'm out of here. He goes, I'm not gonna sit here and listen to you giving evidence against, or trying to give evidence against God. And I thought, that's bad. You shouldn't be that guy. Don't listen to the evidence. Because if it's true, the evidence against it won't hold up.
Yeah.
If it does hold up, then you need a new belief system.
Right.
You need to abandon the God thing and go with evolution, if evolution's true.
Right.
And that's the way I feel, but a lot of people don't. So I don't remember where we sprang from.
Well, no, I'm just bugging you.
Well, I'm loving the bugging. I think it's awesome.
It's just,
It's narrow-minded. It's what's all the words? I hated all of it. You know that, right?
Yeah.
You've heard that part of my story.
Yeah.
I hated Christians. I hated the Bible. I hated all of it.
Yeah.
And that was what I would say. I would say it's narrow-minded. How can you say that your religion is the only right one? Who are you to say that, right? Come on. There's some nice, wonderful people that really, truly believe that Hinduism is correct.
Sure.
So what about them?
Yeah.
You telling me they're going to be in hell just because they didn't believe in your Jesus? It's just that was me talking, 20 years ago. So I get it. I understand, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, no, I think it's just, you hold real firm, and it's, how could I not just ask you a bunch of things about it? Is there any kind of in-between, do you believe that there are, layers of hell? If me, who's just nah, versus the guy who killed 20 people, are we both ending up in the same place?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Can't wait.
But now you ask me if I like that? No.
Okay.
I don't.
Oh, okay, but like
here I'll be honest with you. Here's a struggle I have, okay? I have a hard time with hell.
Okay.
Because I think to myself, I can conjure in my mind some of what I would view as the most horrible people that have ever existed. You know, it's going to be some child rapist, right? For me, that's what it's going to be. And I think to myself, do I want that guy punished? Absolutely. Do I want him to suffer for eternity? No end.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
So to think that that's what hell is, that's hard for me to grasp. It really is. It's hard for me to line that up with a loving God.
But you feel like it would be cherry picking if you didn't.
Well, I feel like it would be not. I feel like for me to say that hell wasn't that, again, I would have to go against Scripture, because Scripture is very clear that's what hell is.
So you believe that, you know, I could cure cancer and still not believe in God, and I'm still like I am physically saving the lives of humanity.
Yes,
but still just like
right. So Christianity is not based on what you do or don't do. It's a response. It's a you saying, basically saying yes to God. Like God has reached down into sinful humanity, which is all of us, no matter what level of sin it is, whether you're Jeffrey Dahmer or you're somebody who told a lie once, whatever. It's all the same. Yeah. It's not the same as far as impact. It's the same as far as its separation from you and God.
So is there no merit system to what is accomplished other in a non-religious form?
So, and I'll tell you, this is a part of Scripture that I remember I said some parts I don't understand. It does talk about levels of rewards in heaven.
Okay.
What does that mean? I don't know. What I do know is it's not a matter of, the reward is not whether you get there or not.
Yeah.
It's once you're there, there's supposedly certain, I don't understand it. I've had other Christian friends try to explain it to me. I don't, it doesn't make any sense to me at all, especially if getting in the gates is totally not based on merit and what you've done.
Right.
Yet now you're telling me that once I'm in there,
it just feels like, if I save 5 children out of a burning building.
Right.
But I'm not sold on the idea of God. What a big bummer for me.
Right.
Like,
right. Well, which is probably true of a lot of people.
Eternal suffering? Yeah. Come on.
Right. That's rough.
Yeah.
Especially if the 5 people you saved are in heaven.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you wouldn't even be here.
Well, maybe the guy who started the fire is in heaven because he feels bad about it and found God in prison.
Yep.
Whew.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Jeez.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And I guess God's going to know if I'm faking it.
Oh, he will.
If, I'm just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he will definitely. Yeah.
Jeez.
But again, it's a heart response is really the only way I can explain it. Because when I became a Christian, I wasn't even looking for it.
Yeah.
I wasn't sitting there saying, okay, let me open this book that I hate.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see if I want to. Do I want to become one of those people that I hate? That wasn't my thought process at all.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it was. I don't know. I hate to use the word experience because that can be anything. You know, I had an experience and it tells me I have to worship, donkeys and, or
right,
whatever,
yeah,
right?
Sure.
I can create my own religion if I want to, and people do it all the time, but.
Boy. Okay.
Yeah. So then a similar question to you would be, for you to believe Christianity's true, what would that take?
I don't know, man. I'm not like waiting for something to convince me.
Right.
You're
not looking for it.
No.
But like...
maybe now I am, now that I know the rules here. Things are looking pretty bleak, friend.
When I was before I was a Christian, I used to say this. I used to say, well, if Christianity was real, then God would come down, stand in front of me, and tell me that, right?
I know that, but it's the believing.
Right, but I even look back now and I think even if that would have happened back then, I would have passed it off as something else.
Sure,
I would have checked myself into the loony bin. Hey, I'm seeing things, Doc.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this God figure who's appearing before me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it would really have to be something next level. And I think that I would probably find a way to explain pretty much anything.
Right.
I mean, even what you're talking about, it would have to, I don't know, it'd have to be like a Field of Dreams scenario or something. But,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Yeah, I'm not seeking it.
Right. But you're open to it.
Sure.
If it's true.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Why not? I'm not against it.
Right.
I just,
because would you consider yourself a seeker of the truth? Like whatever that is?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
But it's only for things I want.
Okay.
Because that is conditional.
Okay. Even if it was the truth.
Well, I mean, because all kidding aside, religion, low priority for me.
Right.
Very happy with my life the way it is.
Right.
Things are going the way you think. We'll deal with that in a while, but
right.
But right now, feeling good.
Right.
Will there be a point in my life where I seek out that? Maybe.
Sure.
And I understand why people do.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's always because people don't have what they would consider a good life?
No.
That they would come to that point? Okay.
Absolutely not.
So you think there's people like you that would be like, oh, everything's great in my life. I love my life. But they would still seek some kind of spiritual...
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just, every person's different and I'm not that person.
Right.
But... Yeah. I mean, I think even there's a big part of me that thinks if a miracle type thing happened in my life, who knows what I would perceive that as.
Right. Exactly.
But the idea of a literal God is it's a big leap for me. That'd be a big leap for me to take.
A literal God as opposed to like a figurative?
I mean, just in general, like... the idea of the story of the Bible, let's just really oversimplify it, playing out, and then humanity coming to be the way of that. It's just like, that's a lot for me to...
Okay.
I think that there's historical truth in a lot of things, but the idea of somebody consciously watching over all of us is like... I don't know if we're going to get to that point. We'll see.
Is that hard to believe because of like what you see in the world, or like when you see suffering and those kinds of things?
No, because I had one of my best friends in high school, and we're still close, but he is a pastor, and he was religious, very religious, even as a kid. We've talked about that before. I get it. I get the like, well, why does this exist if God? Like, I understand the logistics of that to a certain extent, but yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't. Can't really wrap my head around that. Can't really get on board.
Okay.
Interesting, but can't.
Right. So what are your thoughts on the Bible? Like when you say, obviously, we have it.
Oh, sure.
Do you kind of view it as just being written by people that were seeking to make a religion, or...
I don't know what their motive was, but it does seem like really grabbing onto a lot as far as like, hope this is accurate. Because it kind of sounds like a game of telephone. And then you're basing your life on what that game of telephone is.
But that's what's beautiful, right? So let me say this, because this is one of the things that is interesting about how the scriptures are put together, right? You had like 60 something, 40, 60, I think it's 40 different authors. I might be getting the number wrong. There's a lot of authors from a time span of this many thousands of years or whatever, right? And they're all different walks of life, different, you have doctors, you have fishermen, you have the whole gamut, right? You have all these different people, and they've written at different times these different books, what we would now call books of the Bible. At the time, they weren't books of the Bible. They were a writing, right? And you take all that and you put it all together, and it all tells one story and it lines up. Mm-hmm. That's weird. Like if you were to do that today, if you were to go around just in Santa Maria, let alone across as vast of expanse, and say, okay, I'm going to take, let's say you take 10 people only.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, I want you each to write a 4-page report on who God is.
Right.
And what he wants from us.
Sure.
And then you take all those writings, you put them together, you're going to have contradictions all over the place, right? So, I mean, that is kind of fascinating to think that it's, but then someone might say, well, but maybe whoever put all the books together, they took out the contradictions.
Sure.
Right. And they said, well, we can't have that in there. That won't fit. You know?
Right.
So but when you said telephone game, that's what reminded me of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it is. I mean, it is a scary thing to put all your trust into a writing.
Right.
If there's a good possibility that it could have been written down wrong. Sure. Or that the message that was given to, let's say, Peter, and he wrote it down 2 years later. And I don't remember exactly what Jesus said, but I think he said something along these lines, you know.
Sounds like
and
something he would say.
Right. And if that was the case, I wouldn't trust it at all. Mm-hmm. Because here's where I'm at with that, is like if any of it's false, mm-hmm. as far as I'm concerned, it all is. Not that it all really is, but how do I know what is and what isn't? Right. If I see that one part of Scripture is recorded incorrectly, then at that point forward, as far as I know, every single piece I read could be wrong. Right. And I'm staking everything on, like you asked me, well, how do you know this? Well, Jesus said he's the way, the truth, and life, and no one comes to the Father. What if that was written down wrong? Right. That's a big claim. Right. You know what I'm saying? Maybe what he really said was, I am one of the ways, I am one of many truths, and I'm one of the many ways that you can get to the Father. You know what I mean? Like sure. That would totally change everything, you know? So, wow. So that's kind of a big, it's important, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So if you find that out, let me know, because...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Then I'll be like, all right. And then you will be known as the person who got Ryan away from Christianity. You can take pleasure in that.
You think Bethany would still be with you?
If I left all that?
Yeah.
I think so. I think it would be the same as what we talked about, as if it was her that left, it'd be the same kind of thing. I think. Yeah.
I mean, it's a big part of your identity, though, right?
It is. Yeah. Right. Honestly, I think I would probably go somewhere away where I didn't know anybody. Yeah? I don't know. That would probably be...
Would you be, like, ashamed? Like, this was who I was and oops?
I don't know. I'd almost... Well, no, not so much ashamed that I was duped. It would be more like everything here... I mean, because when you follow that for 20 plus years, that's such a huge part of your life, your kids, everything. It'd almost be like everywhere I look is something to do with...
So it's like a breakup.
Kind of. Yeah. In a sense, right? I'd want to go somewhere where like, okay, I'm starting fresh. Yeah. The only person that I know is my wife. Yeah. And that's it, you know, because we're assuming there's no kids involved in this scenario. Yeah. But yeah. Wow.
Crazy. Okay, I've got to ask you something before I go. We were playing a game of Heads Up one time. Uh-oh. And you mentioned a movie that you really liked, American Beauty.
Did you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But where does that fall with you morally, ethically? Because you're a rule guy with movies, and I found that out, and I've thought about it ever since. I think about whenever your name comes up. I'm just like, American Beauty thing.
You know what's funny? Huh? You're not the first person to ask me that.
Okay.
So, first of all, I fell in love with the movie before I was a Christian. Okay. However, I still love it. Okay. Right? And there was another Christian lady that I know, I've known for forever. she had a big problem with that. She's like, how can you say?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, look, I'm not condoning everything in the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for me, that movie is so... It's just so moving. And just... Again, like the way I break down movies, like I was saying earlier, the direction of it, even the script writing, it's just such a beautifully made movie. Like this idea that, well, I mean, even you go just to the basic concept of the bag. Yeah, that he's filming the bag floating around. Like he's like, that just reminds me that there's this whole world out there I don't even have any idea about. Sure. You know, plus just the whole idea that everybody's phony. Yeah, right? Okay. Like every person in that movie has a false front up. That's not who they truly are. It's not till Lester discovers that, and then he's like the first one to kind of come out of that, and then he's like, and then of course he goes nuts, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's hard for me to explain it. I just think it is such a well-made. Everything about it, the acting, the writing, the direction, the music. Yeah. Oh my gosh, like everything about it. But people say, well, Ryan, I mean, you understand that there's a grown man who's attempting to sleep with a high school girl. Are you okay with that? No, I'm not okay with that. But look at the scene. Yeah. This is a high school girl whose reputation is for being promiscuous. And that's her whole thing. Right. She puts it out there like, oh, I'm Little Miss Sensuous and I'm this and that. But when it comes down to it, what does she say? I'm a virgin. Right. And not only that, but for Lester's character, he backs off immediately. Right. Why? Because
the image is shattered.
Yes. His intrigue by her was her sensuality, was the fact that this is a girl who's experienced, man. This girl is this. Right. You're a virgin. I'm not interested anymore. Right. It wasn't so much it was like, oh, I don't want to be your first because I'm a moral person. Obviously, he's not a moral person because he was going to do everything it anyway. Else, yeah. You see what I'm saying? Sure. So yeah, just I mean, and you can go forever with it. You can go with the wife and her cheating with the real estate king guy and the, you know.
I mean, do you feel like that you're missing out on so many other works of art by cutting? Because that got in like Indiana Jones grabbing the hat as the door is closing. Right. I mean, do you feel like there's so many more things left to appreciate? Well,
I'll say this. I don't not watch movies.
Well, sure.
Like, I will watch them on, like, ClearPlay. Uh-huh. If you look at a movie like American Beauty, some key elements of that story would be cut.
I think you wouldn't like it the same way if you had seen it that way.
Right. That's true. Yeah, so I guess in that sense, there's probably some cases.
Does that bum you out?
I guess not when I realize what I'm getting out of it.
What are you getting out of it?
Well, if my relationship with the Lord is more important to me than artwork, than art of movies. But yeah, am I missing out on stuff?
Maybe God loves American Beauty.
Yeah, maybe. And I think God is a part of that movie, even though they don't explicitly state that. Yeah. I mean, sure.
I mean, what if you found out that the man who made that movie is a Christian? What if God is having a hand in these movies that you're not watching because of your view of what God does and doesn't want?
Well, that would be difficult because then, again, you got to go back to Scripture and then say, well, would God be wanting me to expose myself to things like that? Is that who He is? Is that His nature? Would He be using one of His followers to make a movie like that? Yeah. Can I say absolutely not? No. Right. But it's probably not, right? I mean, like, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the Christian movies are not very good because they're cheesy.
Kirk Cameron.
But yeah, Kirk Cameron. Exactly. Although I like Kirk Cameron. I met him once.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Was he cool?
He's very cool. Okay. Yeah, very cool. But I mean, that's almost like saying to somebody, well, now that you're clean and sober, do you feel like you're missing out on the party scene? Or now that you're married, do you feel like you're missing out on the dating scene? Do you feel like you're missing out on...
Hard disagree on art, but...
But I mean, as far as missing things that are fun or that are adding...
I don't think it's fun.
Okay.
I think it's adding to your human experience. It's adding... It's a good album. It's a painting.
Right.
It's
That's true.
It's a perspective.
That's true.
Because I think that there's a lot of things that are indulgent and have no value you can take away from them. But I mean, obviously the movie stuck with you.
Right.
And
Still.
so, I mean,
Still.
And I'm sure that there's points in your life that you've thought about it or you've made comparisons to things in it. And
Right.
so,
Or like if you came to me and you said, Ryan, I just saw this movie and it reminded me of American Beauty, not in the story or the
Right.
thing, but in the way it affected me, I would watch it.
yeah.
I would probably watch it. Now, if you were to tell me, but there's key scenes that will be removed if you
Right.
watch it on ClearPlay that you're going to miss.
Yep.
I'd be at to be honest with you, I'd be at a turn right there. I would have a decision.
Do you
to make.
ever ditch the clear play?
Yes.
Okay.
Only when we feel like we missed something.
Okay. So you never go into it the first time without it.
Yeah, well, depending on what's in it. So there's some things.
Okay, well, if you're going to put in Balto, you're not going to put it in the clear play.
Well,
but
even
I mean,
there are some movies, like if it's rated R for violence.
okay.
Like I can watch like No Country for Old Men, another one of my favorite movies. So in that movie, the only reason it's rated R mostly for violence.
Yeah.
And there's a couple swear words.
Yeah.
So with the ClearPlay, I'll remove the swear words. There's no sex scenes in it.
Yeah.
So I'll just remove that. I'll still watch the violence.
Yeah. Violence, cool, God?
Well, depending
Yeah.
on how it's presented, right? Like there's violence in the Bible.
Okay.
Right? So
There's sex in the Bible.
there is sex in the Bible, but not for my viewing. I'm not supposed to be watching.
So it's all about how you get it.
I guess. Right. There's sex in the Bible between,
So if you're reading a novel, there's a sex scene, do you just like flip through, oh, gotta get past this?
Boy, I can't remember the
Or do
last
you
time.
keep reading it?
I can't. Well, I would probably keep reading it.
Okay.
But I wouldn't find myself reading like a romance novel or something. that
Sure,
had a bunch
but
of,
there's a key scene in,
Right. Have you ever read It?
No.
Were you a Stephen King?
No, but...
Do you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That they thankfully took out of the movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a weird... I mean, I was such a Stephen King fan, but even that back
What a
then,
wild ride, yeah.
What a scene! Like in the fact that he didn't get any... I mean, he got some flack for it, but I mean, it wasn't like...
we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
yeah,
dude,
I know,
what
yeah.
in the world? Like, anybody else did something like that, they'd be like, this guy's a pedophile. This
Right,
guy's
yeah.
definitely a pedophile. I mean, how could he put a scene like that in the book? And I've heard him defend it, and he says, no, the whole point was it was a rite of passage. It was
Right,
their...
yeah.
It's like, dude, I get all that, but come on, you know. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if I'm reading a book and it's got something, I guess it would depend on how it was hitting me, how it was convicting me. If I was reading it feeling like, oh, okay, this is dirty to me. This isn't working for me.
Okay.
So I don't know, but those are good questions. But I will say most movies that we've done with ClearPlay, I can only think of one time where we've ever missed something crucial.
Yeah.
And that was in The 300. Did you ever see that movie?
Oh, the Spartan movie?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen it.
Okay. Well, there's a scene where a key conversation is taking place, and it's happening in a brothel.
Oh, okay.
And there's like half naked women everywhere, and they're dancing, and it's very seductive and all this. But during all that, there's a scene where this one guy's talking to another guy, and it's very crucial. So when we're watching a ClearPlay, cut that out.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, wait a minute. Why are they? What happened with that? Whoa!
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we got to find out what happened. And then we look back to ClearPlay after looked at it and like, oh, okay, that's why.
You think God forgave you?
I think so. I think God forgives me for everything I do.
Just watch every movie then. And...
But that, I mean,
come on, man.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
what's
not
the line here.
That's not just because He does forgive doesn't mean I should just keep doing things I know I shouldn't be doing. That's not a good like.
But you're not watching porn, right? You're watching
right.
Was in a movie theater,
right.
Authentic movie film.
Right. But what's the difference?
Well, because I think that there's maybe, I mean, you're talking about like a big plot hole from skipping that scene.
Right.
But I mean, I think arguably there's things in a movie that are more subtle that aren't going to make you go, what does this even mean anymore?
Right.
That you're missing from the full experience.
Right. To where porn, you'd be watching it.
Well, I'm saying
for
that
the
you go
point
into
of
that
watching,
knowing that this is
right.
quote bad.
And that's what you're doing.
And you're not doing
for.
that.
Right.
To
where if you're watching a movie and there's a
Right.
sex scene in it, you're not watching the movie for the sex scene. If you're watching porn, that's exactly why you're watching.
So you're not going into it being like, ready to be naughty. You're watching a movie that happens to have 2 minutes of something, quote, dirty.
Right.
So whatever.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like maybe God would be cool with you watching the full American Beauty movie.
Right.
And would maybe let you get away with it.
Yeah. I will tell you this. It's for me, it's a lot of times it's not so much like a conscious, like, it's more of, how do I explain? Okay, so there's certain things that I could do, certain things I could watch, certain things I could listen to before I became a Christian. No, it didn't bother me at all.
Right, sure.
Now it's not so much a conscious, like, okay, I can't do that because God,
God's not gonna like
right.
that.
It's more like, what is this like? It's a different experience now because I'm a different person. It's like there's a famous pastor that said, somebody came up to him one time and said, I don't want to become a Christian. And the pastor says, well, why not? And he says, because you guys aren't allowed to drink. And the guy says, I drink all that I want. What do you mean? He goes, yeah. And he goes, well, you guys aren't allowed to, to sleep with whoever you want. Or to cheat on your wife. And the pastor says, well, I cheat on my wife all that I want to. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? And the guy said, I don't want to do those things.
Yeah, sure.
I cheat on my wife as much as I want, which is never.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not so much a list of rules for you to follow.
Yeah.
It's more like, this is who I am now, kind of a thing. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Awesome. Seriously, this is great. I have to cut it out. Does you have anything more you want to go with, or we?
I'll talk about anything with you. But, I don't know. Probably just start bugging you about movie stuff.
You threw me for a loop with that American Beauty thing. I wasn't expecting you to say that. I don't even remember that heads up night where I said that.
The thing is that I think somebody had a clue or whatever that somehow related to it, and you didn't. I overheard you say it to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
Like, you didn't say it to me.
Like I said, that was my favorite movie.
Right, yeah, I really like that movie, whatever.
Okay.
And...
Wow.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were like, wait, what? Put that in my mental roll.
Here's the thing, is that I knew that it had to be a situation where it happened in a pre-God Ryan phase of your life.
Right.
But the fact that you still and are willing to verbally acknowledge the love for the movie.
Right. Maybe you caught me in a moment of weakness. And now you're exploiting it for the world.
I liked American Beauty. Here's the thing, is that it's just, I'm so... I don't like censorship.
Right.
I don't like the cancel culture of we're not going to watch these movies anymore because of this, that entire thing. And so it's just like,
well, I think that's a personal choice.
Movie. And
right.
So there's so many others that I don't know.
Do you feel like anything should be censored? Like, do you think you should be walking through the grocery store and seeing pornographic images?
No, I mean, I think that I will say like quote ban books, things like that.
Right.
And I know that historically there are many things that people are like, this was a banned book. It's like, yeah, but it's 1954.
Right.
Like,
why was it banned? It's always to us now, a weird reason.
Right.
To them, it was very serious back then.
Right. But I think that there's, just like what you're doing, there's a conscious decision of what you do and don't consume.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of things just like choose not to consume that.
Right.
What you're saying about the grocery store, sure. Like,
right. It's in your face.
Don't put Playboys down where the kids can see them. I get that. But I mean, as far as a general work.
Right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I don't think that someone else should come in and try to and tell someone you can't make that movie.
Right.
Or you can't write that book.
Yeah.
But if I can watch a movie and censored for myself I mean, I'm not saying it should be censored for everybody and that somehow they should redo the movie and change it so that it's not offensive to anyone and then re-put it out. Because people have their own, you want to watch it, watch it.
It only comes from a place of personally knowing you.
Mm-hmm.
And just like when people do that thing, like, you gotta see this show, and it's like, I'm never gonna watch your show.
Right.
Where it's like, I want you to see all the things. And so,
well, shoot them my way.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get a yes. Who knows? Say, I mean, seriously, you're watching something or you're hearing something, you're like, man, I think Ryan really did this. You know, and if it's, I will listen to something that has things in it that are offensive to me. if I feel like it's productive in any way. Like I'll listen to a podcast that's got profanity or whatever in it, you know, not just for my own amusement necessarily, but if it's like, okay, this is going to help me in some way, or this is going to be beneficial to me, then I will, you know.
Do you ever swear?
Wow, it's been a long time.
If I leave this house, you're home alone.
No.
And you fall down that flight of stairs. You just be like, oh, shoot.
It doesn't happen. I can remember the last time I did, and it was after I was a Christian.
Okay.
And I was working out at the ranch, and there was a certain ride that I always ran for the big events.
Yeah.
And I remember this guy that I didn't care for. He took over my ride. And I remember I was so mad. I said, and I let one rip, you know, and I was like, but I was so convicted as soon as it came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
That's the last time I can remember doing it. That's not true. There was a time later when me and my friend were walking to lunch, and this car whipped around the corner, and the door was wide open, and a girl was like trying to get out, and he was like driving away with her and the whole thing. And I was like, and he just kind of, whoa, you know, it's like, so yeah, I guess, but that's happened twice in my Christian life. You talk about prior to that.
Yeah.
I was everybody's sailor, you know, so I mean, it's.
Is this a struggle with your kids when they get to be like in high school?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I know that, you know.
Or even after high school.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
adult.
Not in front of us, obviously, but I'm sure with their friends and stuff.
Yeah.
I know. I think Alora had mentioned that she struggled with that for a while, and at a certain time in life. Aiden, I know, still struggles with that, obviously. I went down to see him, and there was a few times it slipped, and I even told him, I said, okay. I said, I don't like hearing that. Your mom doesn't like hearing that. However, it's another thing entirely if you let that slip in front of your siblings. Right? That's a whole different playing field. So if you're going to come home and visit, then you really need to check that at the door. Yeah. Because he used to be better at it. Like, and I know when he's with his friends, he's letting everything rip.
He's not home anymore.
Right, so, exactly. Yeah. And I almost expect that, you know, because why wouldn't he? Like, what in the world would be stopping him from that, you know? So as far as the younger two, I don't think so. Yeah. But I don't think I would know if they did. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, I know that they're involved with kids that do. So, I mean, I know they're hearing it sometimes. It'd be naive of me to assume that, no, they've never heard any of those words before. Right, and, you know, there's a certain age where I believed that. But now that they're involved with groups and things like that. So, but yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. That was fun. Thanks for tuning in this week. Please spread the word about this podcast to those you know. I'm always looking for feedback, so please contact me at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. If you would like to join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group, just search for it and ask to join. Thanks. Here's a clip from next week.
It's totally plausible to say that, hey, maybe this does happen all the time, and this one time it connected in just such a perfect way to where this dude suddenly goes from being dead to, oh my gosh, I'm back.
But who connected it is my question.
No, he might have been sleeping weird, and one of the nerves was, no, I'm serious.
No, I see what you're saying.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I had to spit on my car battery to get here. Like,
you spit on it?
Yes, I spat on the thing, and the fact that it was a liquid touching it conducted it so I could start my car. Like,
what made you think to do that?
The guy yelling at me. I told you this. I thought I told you the story.
No.
Okay, so on the way here, total side tangent, but on the way here, I pulled off to get some gas, and when I turned off my car, I went inside, paid for the gas, whatever. I came back out and tried to start my car, it wouldn't start. So I'm sitting there going, and like, oh no, it wasn't even
turning over,
making the noise. So I was like, oh my gosh, I just got a brand new battery. Maybe I already messed something up. Like, I put it in myself, so I could have very easily messed something up. So I was like freaking out about that, and I opened it up, and then the mechanic guy who worked at the shop, the mobile oil bay, he goes, is it not starting? And I go, no. He goes, try spitting on it. So I was like, okay.
What in the world?
So I spat on it, and immediately the second it hit, the battery went psst, and then, so I thought I blew it up at first, and then the engine went and then died again. And I was looking at him, I was like, what just happened? And he was like, try starting it. I was like, okay, random person. And so I hit the car and it started. Dude. It started flawlessly. Didn't even rev. Just on. Good to go. Complete. And did not turn off again the entire drive.
And this is a guy that worked there.
Yeah.